You know what time it is. It's about to be that time.
Hey everybody, here we are. We're back. All right. It is break week. Okay. Unfortunately, after all of the breaks that needed to be taken, there's another one. So here we are. Today's something special. We have Theory for Theory. Okay. And I'd like to thank my special guest here today, which is VinlanD. So, you there, man? You want to talk to the people?
Yeah, I'm there. It was good, everyone. I don't have much to say to the people, but it's good to be here. Hopefully people from my channel came over. I just sent out another message. It's been a while since I've been on a stream with people since the Reverie, where I got roasted, but it is what it is. I'm going to try and control myself. I talk too much on Randy's stream because it's his channel, but I have a lot of theories from you guys, theories from myself, and a theory from Randy Troy himself that I really want to get into because I think it's important for the end of Wano, but it's good to be here.
And I just did something strange. There we go. That's great, man. Yeah, I saw some people talking about the roast in the chat.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Yes, I don't know. So I was just scrolling through for a second.
Just quickly, Randy, I remember I had done before the Reverie stream with Sensei, and now nobody will let me live that down, where my audio had collapsed. I hope it doesn't happen during this stream, and it's good right now. And I was literally talking for I think 20 minutes, just nonstop, or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, man, exaggerating.
All right, they're saying that your voice is too low. Let me see if I can adjust it on my end.
Okay.
Let's see.
Okay.
So I've just upped the audio
I'll try and,
of VinlanD in OBS. So guys, let me know if that fixed anything, and then we'll try on his end.
Yeah, and mine I'll try, yeah.
Yep. So, we're figuring this out, guys.
He said it's better? Is it better?
Yep, they're saying better now. They're saying much better.
Much better. One person said much better.
All right. They're saying that.
Oh, now you're saying that your volume is lower.
Okay. I'll bring mine up. Let's see. And then once we have this all situated and everybody feels
so I guess
comfortable.
what I'll do, Randy, is because since we both, earlier before the stream started, we thought our volumes were too loud, I guess I can lower the volume down on my computer, and is what I'm hearing. But the people will get to hear the full volume, right?
Yeah, that might be what it is.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna lower your volume down a little bit.
Yep.
So
all right. They're saying perfect now, so that's
okay.
That's great. Yeah. So get back to what you were saying with the Sensei and all that.
Oh yeah, so I done a stream with him, and I did not realize that something had happened with our connection, and so I was just talking because I was so into the ideas I was saying. I talked for 10, 15 minutes nonstop. Didn't even realize it, and then he popped back in, and Sensei being Sensei, he thought it was funny, so he just uploaded the entire thing the way it was, and people were just, saying this man was just talking to himself the entire time, and he thought he was having a conversation with another person. So.
Oh man. So that's funny. So I just I want to because this is on my channel now. I did say something at the Reverie and all of that, but I just want to say now that we're doing a collab here, thank you for shouting out the law theory so long ago, because that you are the first person that I saw that had anything over 1,000 subscribers or anything sharing any of the videos. So appreciate you, man. That started I would say it's a barrel roll for this community. So everybody in the chat, thank VinlanD here.
I mean, I just say in general, I feel like you definitely have gotten discovered on your own at some point in time, right? I've seen the comments, I've watched your videos occasionally. You definitely have a loyal following. One thing I want to know is why people call you Savage. I hear Savage all the time in your videos, people commenting in the comment section. Is there some kind of meaning to it? Because I have my own little thing on my channel, Valhalla, Valhalla
Right.
Pirates. People understand, even though I'm not from that, from that part of the world, not from the culture. It's more so just like an appreciation for, Nordic mythology, Vikings. At the time I started my channel was me, being a big fan of Shanks, me watching, the Vikings on History Channel, and that really inspired me because, Viking apparently means pirates. I tweeted out the other day. And so that's basically the theme, the thematic theme for the narration I provide for the channel, like a Viking god or whatever, right? But like, I've noticed lately, every channel has their own little thematic device, and for you, it seems like people saying, Randy's the savage, So
Because I'm a savage.
I was just wondering. That's pretty much the explanation. Okay.
No. But I mean, on what you're saying with the whole Viking thing, I mean, we wouldn't have One Piece if it wasn't for Vikings. That's
true.
That Oda's infatuation with Norse mythology and everything is what gave us One Piece. He watched a television show as a kid called Vicky the Viking, and then that spun all of these other ideas and everything like that. But real quick, as far as like the savage thing goes, I mean, I've actually got there is a video on my channel where I brought my cousin. He's a music artist, and we we would just mess around, and we had a little group. It was called Sav Season, and then that was like our tag, Savage, because we were savages. And I just used the tag. So
Another one.
So, Randy, this is just before we get into the theories, because I know that's what the people are here for. Just off topic, are you Irish, or by any chance are you Italian, Irish, or anything like that?
So my background is mostly Irish. Yep.
Okay, yeah, I think I don't know if you had mentioned it somewhere. I could just kind of tell because I knew so much people in the past. Because you give off, like, in terms of being a savage, you give off the whole Boston Mafia vibe. Boston is it Boston, or is it like
Well, I'm from New York, but I also have a lot of ties to the Caribbean via Barbados and Puerto Rico. So.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, half my family's from Caribbean, so yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so we just that's what we're bringing to the table today, people. Getting some Caribbean flair today. So this is cool, man. Yeah, so this is theory for theory, everybody, guys. There's a lot of stuff that's going on, within the community. And shout out to Chin, my guy, for either rejoining or upgrading Savage. That's my guy right there. And let's start with just generally, how do you feel about not just Wano, but in general, like Onigashima? Because I feel like it should be separated. It's a different island. It's kind of been its own arc. We've been here for like 70 chapters. And,
so I know why you're bringing this up, because I saw this on Twitter, and I actually wrote this down as one of the topics as well. So, yeah.
I mean, Twitter was definitely having a field day with Morge and other things, and with the fights and.
I think it's all love. But like, there are some clear, stark differences in, I guess I'll just like dive into this. So I think Grandline started a second, third channel actually, right? He's very good at this stuff, at YouTube in general, right? He's already blown up on his Dude in a Room channel, and I actually
I've been watching it.
I've been watching, yeah, and I'm actually entertained, because with One Piece content creators, I think we were so immersed in the One Piece world, Randy, that we don't really want to watch too much One Piece. Even I think people that are watching right now, they can probably relate to this, right? Like the people that are watching you right now, right? There's so many One Piece channels now, and I've said this before, eventually that window is going to close, and you're seeing more and more One Piece people try to get into the community, but eventually it's like you can only be subscribed and watch so many One Piece videos, right? Like me personally, I used to watch a bunch of Brago, occasionally watch you, I watch King of Lightning, other people, right? But not as often as I used to. It's like I have to be really interested in it because it's just too much. And when you're also a content creator making videos, it just can be, and then you're also reading on the side. You don't want your whole life to be immersed, in the series. That's no disrespect to Oda. I love One Piece, but it is what it is. And so Grand Line Review. I mean, Grand Line Review. Liam's new channel, Dude in the Room, is a breath of fresh air, right? And so he covers other YouTubers that he finds interesting, and he discusses how they've been successful, and or controversies about them or bad things, whatever it is, in his opinion, right? And so he covered Morge, and I feel like this is kind of like carried over in terms of like the first video he made about, it's titled "This YouTuber Created a Cult," and he addresses, the raid will end in failure, and I think that's kind of carried over into what you bring up, in which it's pretty much.
It doesn't matter what he says. It doesn't matter what he says. Anything that he does and anything, it's still just gonna
people always bring it up now as criticism. Yeah.
You don't like this because you think the raid is going to fail. This, that, all. Exactly. A plus B equals X, no matter how the math and whatever to get to.
Morge could make a video, an incredible video on, Zanisha and the Minx and everything, and people will be in the comments asking, the raid going to fail. They won't let it go, right? It's like, it's crazy because like other people get theories wrong. Even though we don't know yet, Morge could be right, but people just move on, right? I've put out a lot of random ideas, even though they're more so discussion videos that have theories and analysis in them. I don't focus like on a specific theory per se. People don't necessarily hold that against me. It is what it is, though. But so what I saw on Twitter was, it was like Grand Line. It was shout out to Joy Boy, the homie, and all of them. On kind of like one side, really defending One Piece. Joy Boy, for whatever reason, is a big defender of One Piece. Respect to that. And then on another end, I saw Brago, who I think obviously loves One Piece as well, but also kind of like backing up Morge, saying he has some legitimate points, right? Standing up for his boy, and Morge pointing out why he has criticisms. And so I guess that's what you're kind of asking me. Where do I stand in all of this? Because I kind of be lurking and I kind of be reading it. And my opinion is I actually really like Wano, and I like it even more now. I think Wano is a great arc. Every author is not immune, right, from criticism, and is not immune from the disease or the curse that is, prolonging an arc to the point that people eventually lose interest, because as human beings, right, when you look at psychology, we only have like attention spans that last so long. Quickly, Randy. So my I have a PC, right, and my computer's starting to like heat up a little bit. My voice good? Everything good?
You're good, man.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
I'll let you know if anything. I won't let you keep talking for 10 minutes to nothing.
Yeah, because when I'm recording video, sometimes my computer will heat up and I have to like re-record my video. But anyway, so in terms of psychology, we have like attention spans that only last a certain amount of time, right? And that was a criticism of Dressrosa. And so with Wano, people have been comparing to that, saying this is going on forever. People just want it to be over. We're going to go to Elbaf. Shout out to O'Hara for dropping a video today about Elbaf. And people are ready to move on, right? And so you have that division. People saying, I saw with Gio on Twitter, the raid ends in failure. A lot of y'all, he said, want this arc to go on forever, with the awakening theories of the commanders and all that kind of stuff. And the characters coming back. It's like, how much longer are we going to be in Wano? Because that's true about any story. You want to move on. Like, where are we going? Which takes to one of the ideas I want to talk about. But again, I'm enjoying Wano. I like Wano. Onigashima, as you said, divided into arcs. Which one would I rank as better? Personally, I think that Onigashima is better. However, I do think that the Odin part of the story, forget the Scabbage, but Odin for me was a highlight, right? One of the greatest deaths or moments in One Piece by far. A lot of people were hating Odin's character at first, but the way he went out was incredibly emotional and impactful, I think, right? When you reread it, the sacrifice. One of my subscribers had mentioned to me one time that based on my banner and everything, they felt like I was really big on sacrificial characters, which is true. For whatever reason, I don't know what that says about me, but I really like characters that are willing to set it all aside for the sake of a bigger purpose, whatever. So you have Shanks, right, giving up his arm. I feel like Shanks is going to sacrifice himself in the end for whatever reason, for whatever promise he made to Roger and fate, whatever. Luffy's like my second favorite character after Shanks, right? Luffy is also, I think, a somewhat sacrificial character, even though he's always saying he's not going to die. I do think Luffy would absolutely give up his life if he had to protect the people around him. I like Zoro for that reason, even though I have Sanji over him because of, the nothing happened moment. But moving on, I do like Onigashima. I think that Onigashima is an arc that has revealed a lot of mystery. I don't think, go back to Grand Line Review, I used to have discussions with him on Twitter, right? and we talked about how theories are kind of like overblown. Even Brago kind of addressed it, right? Brago talking about how people aren't really interested in theories anymore, or back in the past based on Grand Line Review's video. But even Brago brought it up recently, how people are now once again engaged in theories. And if this was a poker game, right? I put all my chips in and said that people still really love theories more so than explained videos and stuff like that. From what I've seen from looking at Grand Line, O'Hara, and other people have really fallen in love with theories again, and that speaks well of Onigashima as an arc that has kind of revitalized the initial love people had for One Piece. Not us talking about certain facts about characters and all this stuff, but us speculating and theorizing, just having fun with it, even if we're wrong, right? Which is why I think Morge deserves some, show some mercy to this man. Stop, going after him for the raid will end in failure, because, he's doing what we all do, right? Morge is just describing what he thinks will be dope if it happened, what he thinks is going to happen, but there's so much more that Morge has talked about that has been spot on or accurate in terms of where the arc is going, right? Outside of that particular narrative. But that's props to Onigashima, wherein a lot of, look at the recent chapter, right? Legendary Devil Fruit, Zunisha. People are obsessed with theorizing about what is happening now, more so than they were early on in Wano. And so that's definitely something that has me thinking Onigashima is good. Although, I'm sure there are people that are heavy into writing like Dritz and others that can look at specific elements and say, they don't think the arc is good. That's their opinion. Maybe it has some credence to it. I don't know.
First of all, anybody that's saying the arc isn't good, that's just cap. Like, get at it.
Yeah, it's cap.
There is nothing that is bad in One Piece, because even the worst part of One Piece is better than
it's great. Exactly.
Better than
I
mid anything
agree.
else. Like so that's the baseline there. First, just want to shout out to Ramona Vila, super chat. It said Morge is just saying that people force themselves to like Wano. He said that's not criticism, that's salt. Then he said love both of our content. Thanks for that. I don't know if necessarily Morge is. I mean, I didn't read everything he said. I don't know if he directly said that people are forcing themselves to like Wano. But there's a lot to like within Wano. Now, I've been pretty vocal that I wasn't a big fan of the udon portion of Wano.
I agree.
And personally...
Although the best part, I think other people agree with this, is when Luffy basically... And this is a video that I planned from last year, Randy, and I do this so often where I don't even get around to because I don't have time, but I'll just say it on your channel in case I don't get around to it at all. I wanted to make a video about how Luffy ascending the waterfall, because there were all those theories before we found out the reveal of Kaido's Devil Fruit not being the koi thing. Luffy taking on this will be the first theory, the metaphor of a carp riding or going up the waterfall, becoming a dragon.
I've actually talked about that on this channel.
Oh, you have? Okay, so with Luffy becoming Monkey D. Dragon, basically becoming his father. Because here's the thing, Luffy is, Luffy's role model is Shanks, right? I was rereading chapter 1 recently. And I do think that he's adopting elements of his father increasingly over time and becoming, it's a strange duality in which he's like his father and he's like Shanks. Maybe he'll have to choose, or maybe he'll find a way that's like both of them, wherein, Shanks wants to preserve the balance and Monkey D. Dragon wants to disrupt the world, right? But Luffy seems to be, in terms of other concepts or personality traits, similar to each of them. And we see that in Udon in terms of his father, where he basically, takes on all the pain of the people, sets them free, talking about being slaves, all that kind of stuff. He resembles, if we were to, see more of Monkey D. Dragon, I think he resembles his father in that moment. And that's why I like that part of Udon in which Luffy's basically going on a rant about how he's here to defeat Kaido. That is an epic moment. I don't know if the anime captured it as well, but I really enjoyed that part.
You're talking about the whole plague bullets thing, and then him standing up for the people in the prison.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's the highlight of Udon for sure. And then even Momonosuke's speech is great. There's moments and there's pockets, but I mean, like and don't get me wrong, like when I say that I didn't care for Udon or anything like that, I'm not saying that Udon was bad. I'm just saying that, like, I don't put it on the same pedestal as, like, some other parts of One Piece. It's not, I don't want the comment saying, oh, I think Udon sucks. No.
Yeah.
There's just...
Okay, I see what you're saying. So what you're saying, Randy, is like you said at the beginning, right? So sorry about that. So you're basically saying like even the worst moments of One Piece, so there's a threshold. For us, right, as One Piece lovers, I think you and me, when we say, "Oh, this isn't that great," we basically rank it a 7, right? Everything else in One Piece is like a 10.
Exactly.
So this isn't that great.
It's
they think we're saying it's a 3, but no, it's a 7.
It's like there's
yeah.
10 there's 10, and then there's Syrup Village, and then like Syrup Village is still probably like a 7.
A 7.
So it's like it's
Yeah.
just
Okay.
that's just what it is. It's like we've seen what Oda can do. We know what he can do. And it's just Udon wasn't necessarily that for me. And also, I like elements of Odin, right? But I think that a fundamental part of his character, at least what I read of his character, is like misunderstood by a lot of people. Like Odin isn't a great man or a great character. He just went out a great man. Like all of the stuff that's going on in Wano is his fault. So the sacrifice that he did is
flawed.
great. Oh, he's super flawed, and that's that does make him an interesting character. But at the same time, yeah. But sometimes I wonder if it's worth all of the idolization that he gets, like even in the manga from certain characters. It's like, all right, he saved you guys, Scabbards. He put you on this pedestal. But let me just finish this. But at the same time, like Wano wouldn't be in the state that it was in if he just
so
like, hey Roger, like why don't you come handle Kaido with me real quick. Or
that's the thing, right? So, like he said, stay back, I'll do it myself.
Right, the whole that's the biggest flaw, and that's the different and that's the parallel that I think that Oda's trying to make with Luffy, is that Luffy doesn't do that. He's
sorry, Randy. Yeah, so just quickly, so one thing I think where you're going with your point is how Luffy basically, again, going back to Udon, said, "Who cares if I'm a pirate, right? Or I'm an outsider, right? I want to help you, right?" And then he calls them slaves, and so I'm the slave mine, all that kind of stuff. And so with Odin's like, you're an outsider. We have to be the ones. And actually, and this is another video that I just, said I don't have time for this. It reminded me of Jinbei, right? Where Jinbei basically was saying, you can't be the ones to interfere, right? If you remember that, it needs to be somebody else. We can't have, you guys coming in here and doing what you're going to do, right? It's basically the same plot line. If you remember that, where Jinbei was basically like, you can't be, pirates, outsiders coming in here and attacking fishermen or whatever it was that he exactly said.
Right.
And Luffy, similar to this, right? You can't be an outsider coming into Wano. There's that whole apprehension, one against humans, one against outsiders. Cultural differences, racial differences, whatever.
And in both instances, you have Luffy coming in and as the outsider and handling a situation. That was thought to be internal.
And the story of One Piece, and the story of One Piece from the title is basically us becoming one people, tearing down walls. The concept of destroying the Red Line, the divisions between us. Yeah, going to chapter 1037 again. When you look at Zunisha, and Zunisha showing up, and shout out to Zoro-boy Theories, putting this on Twitter. He dropped a video, or not video, some panels where he showed the whale laboon and then the family of whales on the other side of the Red Line that he can't get to, the divisions that divide us. And then he showed Thriller Bark, which may or may not be true, but we'll see. Maybe it could happen. Potentially being other elephants, right? That aren't cursed to do anything, but their family members maybe. Although the devil fruit theory throws a mess into that, right? Like if Zeus.
So you're talking about the shadows in the Florian Triangle.
Yeah, and so the problem with that is, right, so if Zunisha is a ship or an island that ate a devil fruit, those other elephants can't be also, ships that ate elephant devil fruit. So you would think that Zunisha would just be a giant elephant, right? Akin to giant animals, akin to giant sea kings or whatever. Maybe in the past, similar to dinosaurs, maybe that's what Oda's relying on, right? That in the past, in our real world, there used to be dinosaurs, right? We still have creatures alive today that some, I don't know what the word is for them, people that specialize in animal biology or whatever, what are the terms for that? They view, for example, crocodiles, right, and other stuff or certain birds as being, basically survivors of that age, basically being dinosaurs themselves, right? And so,
hold on 1 second, my man.
Racks, I gotta have it. Peep my fabric. Do you see this jacket? Pay my taxes. Trust me, you could track it.
I had to stop you for a second, man, because we got a big super chat here from my guy Ty. He said, sorry I'm late, Captain. And he said, holy shit, you linked with the philosophical shanks of the community. Please tell him I'm a big fan. All right.
Hey, yo, shout out to Ty, right? I thought for a second that you were Taekwon, but it's Tire One Will.
Yeah. Tyrone Will, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate the support, Ty.
Yeah. Ty's always.
Or it's Tyr. I think it's Tyr. I think it's is it Ty or is it Tyr? Kind of like the Tyr god that Shanks is based off.
I want to know. I mean, I just say Ty.
They call him Ty.
Yeah, I mean that's that's my guy, man. Yeah, so he's a big fan. And then we also have I wouldn't even go philosophical Shanks. I mean, look at the Abbey. He's the literal Shanks.
Exactly. I hit up recently, just to talk about this, I hit up Eric recently from the Red Force podcast, and I've been continuously doing it. He's probably annoyed by me by now. Where I said, Eric, I need you to make me a new opening, right? I need to, 2022, I need to, switch it up a little bit because, I'm trying to, what I've seen from a lot of other content creators, because I do study them, is, them becoming slightly more mainstream than they used to be in the past, in the sense of keeping true to themselves, but becoming more, available or accessible or relatable in some sense, right? You see that with O'Hara, Brago, other people. And, I think with my opening and other stuff, even my ending, I just tried testing out a new ending and somebody said they liked it. So, the way that I end up my videos, I just want to be more accessible to an audience. And so I think that's, important in terms of how I move forward, in terms of how I approach certain videos or what, way of speaking. I don't know if you can relate that at all, Randy, in terms of like trying to, I know that you asked us in the DMs, right? You were talking about how, what can you do for certain things, for certain videos, and how to approach it. I don't know if you, because, again, I watch some videos, but I don't really follow the, what's the word for it? I don't really follow the approach or the conceptualization behind it in terms of how you structure your content. For me, I just kind of make videos and I put stuff out and I just talk about stuff. People make fun of me saying I've mastered the art of talking but not saying anything, which I don't know what they're talking about, because I am saying stuff. I am putting out a bunch of ideas out there, right? I'm not just talking for the sake of it, right? Like we're definitely. I
don't think that you fall into that category. I'm sure that there are others that could, but I mean, like, I think when you watch a VinlanD video, you're gonna walk out of it with at least going,
some ideas, yeah, because I think yeah, because there are some people out there, I think, that just want you to get straight to the point, and that's the beauty of Morge's channel, wherein he kind of, from a marketing perspective, because he's a marketer, I guess. I think somebody told me that in his real life he does that as a job. He gets straight to the point, right? Like, he has a video title, it's about the video. He only focuses on that idea for the most part, and he talks about it point by point by point, panel by panel, and he's done, right? And a lot of people appreciate that because they don't really have time to waste. They just want to hear the specific idea that you're talking about, where in my videos, we talk about everything. And maybe I kind of modeled myself off of Brago, because he did influence me, even though people think, oh, how did Brago influence you, right? You guys are two totally different YouTubers. Brago dropped a Nico Robin Returns video wherein I was like studying the way he speaks. He switched up his entire style from his original video content. And I said to myself, maybe, one way to grow on a channel is, again, like I was mentioning earlier, to be accessible to people. And so the way I was speaking, I don't know if you remember, Randy, if you were around back then, I used to actually try to pretend I was a Viking god. The OGs know exactly what I'm talking about.
I remember
I would be, yeah, it's embarrassing, but I'd be yelling to the mic. And one day, right after I switched up my content style, right, I, for the first time, went back and watched my video. And I listened to my first video, and I could not bear it. It was unbearable, right? I deleted that. I took those videos down. I had like 10 videos or whatever. They're all gone. But yeah,
it's all
it
good,
was
man.
about kind of just be yeah, it's kind of just like just being yourself in a way. Like, but for me, it's kind of more from a reading perspective, right? Just talking to people in a reading voice, even though it's not as casual as you might be or other content creators might be, but still just kind of just being myself and not trying to imitate something that I'm not really practicing. Because people say Vinland, you should be a voice actor. I'm not a voice actor, just to put that out there on this channel, right? Like, I don't have any experience. People bring it up all the time. You might like my voice when I'm recording. Some of you might not. But I'm not, a professional. Like some
Well,
of the
see the
people
thing,
that may be out
the
there.
thing is like when people say voice acting, there's a lot of different elements that go into that, and the most, popular idea of it is that you're voicing a character or something, and that requires different voices. What you have is like a narrator voice. Like you could do commercials,
Yeah,
you could
exactly.
do that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Like I mean, and that's what you could narrate a book, whatever. I mean, that's I think that's what they're saying, and I would just take it as a compliment, man.
Okay, yeah.
Shout out to Nick. He said Odin, Rayleigh, and Gabon would have taken Kaido and his men out in 20 minutes flat. And then enter a name, member for 9 months, said rate the amnesia plot line from 1 to 10. All right, I'll talk about that in a second. But to get to your point about like how I handle and structure this channel to begin with, I'm trying to figure out different ways to I guess mold it in a way that allows it to become more successful. I mean, it really all just started as I've had this channel for a long time. I used to put short films on it and different things that I was working on. There's a video of me doing stand-up. It was just a mishmash channel of different things that I've done over my life. And then I just started doing like One Piece content because I've been a fan for 20 years. I used to work for Kaizoku Fan Subs. I used to work for Arlong Park. And I'm always trying to get people into the series, so I made a video on One Piece. Then people were like, hey, you should do chapter reviews. I started doing that. Then, I've always had theories, so I started doing that. That's more fun than anything. Then people said, hey, you should start streaming. Now I'm having so much fun streaming because the initial reason why I started this in the first place was to talk to people about One Piece. Now I get to, because that's something that was like completely absent in my regular life. And but what I have now, and like talking about the whole thing with dude in a room and all that, if Grandline analyzed my channel, he would go in on me like he did with teching, I'm sure, because I've got 2-hour streams, I've got 20-minute VODs every week and all this stuff. I mean, there's a consistency there. At least like I try to keep things to like 15-20 minutes and then 2 hours for like streams. But you still there, man? Or did I lose you?
Savage.
You there, man? Did I lose you?
Certified drip. It's about to get spicy.
So I think I lost Vinland.
Can't hear anything. Yeah, Randy, you can hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, I don't know what happened. My screen turned off, and I guess what happened was it reset because I have a program on my computer that amplifies volume. So what it did was it kind of changed the volume setting. So we're good now.
Yeah,
topic.
I was just going in on the history of the channel and all of that.
Okay. I saw you got another super chat. I was just laughing to myself because I was about to comment in your chat. This is why I don't stream because somebody said I want to hear Vinland say, and in my comment section people always saying, "Yo, Vinland, when you stream, can you say this? Can you say this? Can you say this?" And it reminds me back when I was in high school, right? When my voice, puberty and everything, my voice suddenly started to change.
Oh, you'd be sitting in class and someone would be like,
yeah.
Man.
So there were girls on my bus, right? There were girls on my bus, and I remember at first I didn't understand why they were doing it, and they would ask me, they would say, "Can you say this to me? Can you say this?" I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, why do you want me to say this?" It was crazy. But I have people in the chat right now saying, Vinland, can you say this? Donating $50 to you. Can you say that?
Yeah. So shout out to Trey Bird. He said, "I want VinlanD to say Almighty Push."
Hey, yo, on my second channel, when I make a Naruto video about pain, which I plan on doing, I have a tab opened up to write about the script, right? I'll say that for you, Trailer. I'll say it.
I'd rather have my man here give me a yuck. Let's see. Sox Dizabek said, "Do you think Shanks' no sword style could send Fuji to Valhalla?" We're getting into power scaling here, which is something I tend to stay away from.
Oh, so here's the thing. In a recent video, I said I was going to make that Shanks fighting style video. And I'm going to make it. I know I said when people said, if you subscribe, I'm going to drop this video this week. Didn't happen. You know, I'm going to get around to it. The Kaido video's coming out, Awakening, whatever. But I'm going to make that because I have the script I'm working on. But there are some things that I noticed, right, based on that Kaido chapter that I think will blow people's minds. Because, for example, Randy, I don't know if you saw the review, but you know, the chapter you see Kaido drinking, you know, laughing drunken style, sad crying drunk style, angry drunk style, is a result of his alcohol, right? You see right before he clashes with Whitebeard, it could just be a clash. I mean, other characters drink, obviously they're pirates, but you know, Shanks downs an entire jug of his favorite liquor from West Blue, right? Now, I think the one thing I did not pick up on when I made that comment in the review is the difference between somebody that can handle their liquor and someone that can't, right? And so if Shanks can keep himself under control, then maybe there's no fighting style there, because the key word is drunken, right? And so Rock Lee, like I compared it to, right? Rock Lee got drunk. That's why he had a new fighting style. If Shanks doesn't really get drunk, then there's no real room to theorize on him having a fighting style like Kaido that varies in approach. But what I loved was the possibility of, you know, Mihawk, this one I had in a script, but I'll just mention it here because maybe no one will notice it, whatever. But Mihawk had said to Zoro, right? He said, you're not allowed to drink alcohol or wine or whatever until you master arm and hockey, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, you know, there's like this parallel between Mihawk being excited by the chance of Zoro one day being the man to defeat him, because, you know, like so many archetypes or whatever, or cliches, whatever the exact word is in terms of writing or film, wherein you reach a level of strength, right, or accomplishment, and you're just thirsty for someone to defeat you because you want to feel that thrill, right? There's no thrill in you constantly winning. You want a challenge in which you're like, I've been the greatest, but I had a lot of fun. I'm glad you won. That's why I can kind of see the ending of Mihawk versus Zoro. I don't see Mihawk being like, oh my God, I'm so sad. You know, like think about like LeBron James or like other athletes out there, like Michael Jordan. They want to be the best, right? Because they're competing against other historical figures that are better than them. And so it's never enough. But with Mihawk, he is definitively the best.
Yeah, he's
and
Jordan.
So I think, exactly. And so like, he wants Zoro to defeat him, but you have to be worthy of it, right? Not just, oh, I want you to beat me, I'm gonna let you beat me. You have to be worthy of it. So he'll welcome it. He'll bring a smile to his face, I think. And so in the context of that, I think with Shanks, you know, Zoro being someone that likes to drink, Shanks also drinking. Mihawk drinks a little bit of wine, but he controls himself. Maybe it's a reflection of swordsmanship and Zoro learning greater control, right? It's like a metaphor or symbolism or whatever. I think that Shanks, you know, when you look at the original rivalry that Mihawk had to deal with a guy that was not as disciplined probably as Zoro, right? That indulged in alcohol as much as Zoro, that probably mirrors Luffy's character more so than Zoro's character. So just imagine how annoying that must have been for Mihawk, who had very little patience, right, for anything. And him having to deal with a Shanks version of Luffy in terms of rivalry versus having to deal with Zoro. And so that's kind of the premise of the video I'm going to be, you know, working on in terms of Shanks fighting style, you know, Shanks sending Fujitora to Valhalla as, you know, as one of your subscribers said. You know, that's basically what I'm going to be putting out there is there's a few hints that Oda has dropped, and I think that it's kind of solidified because there's another thing.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? You go back to, I don't remember what chapter it is. I remember it being episode 45. But when Mihawk shows up to the island with Luffy's bounty, right? Mm. And he walks up to Shanks, and Shanks is wasted, right? Mm. And looks up at Mihawk, and he's like, "Oh, you want to fight?" You know, something along those lines. But what does Mihawk say to him? He says, I have no interest in fighting a one-armed man." He has no qualms with the fact that Shanks is drunk.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there might be something to this, you know, whole
And so-
drinking gives you power thing.
Just to add to what you're saying, like, so I know that people, you know, I don't want to get into this toxic debate because, you know, who is stronger, Shanks or Mihawk? That is terrible. That's probably one of the worst.
Oh, I'm not. Yeah.
But in terms of, you know, Mihawk approaching him and the arm thing and all that stuff, I think it's more so just go off your point. You know, if and this is an interesting discussion to have, right? If Mihawk legitimately saw Shanks still as a rival and someone that he enjoyed dueling with, he would probably duel him because Mihawk seems to be living for somebody that can one day defeat him or surpass him. Based on his words to Zoro, right? Like, you know, get stronger, explore the world, see the world, and one day surpass me. Mihawk wants that. That's pretty much all he cares about, right? There's so much we don't know about him to fully expand on that element of his character, but from those, you know, little statements, we can glimpse a lot. And so with Shanks, if Shanks is truly, and this is me as a firm believer that Shanks is one of the strongest characters, if not the strongest character in One Piece. But you know, if Shanks is truly, you know, stronger than Mihawk, wouldn't Mihawk still be interested? And that's what's interesting, right? Because if Shanks were on Mihawk's level or stronger than him, right? I mean, of course, no one is on his level, but if he was stronger than him, wouldn't Mihawk want to fight him? So why would he not want to fight him? Besides Oda saying, "I have no interest in fighting a one-armed man," what does it truly imply, right, Randy? Like, what is he actually saying when he says that?
I mean,
Marine Ford, when he says, you know, "I did not sign up to fight him," I feel like there's something that Shanks did in the past that has accumulated a great amount of respect in Mihawk, a sense of sacrifice in which they were once rivals, but Shanks set that all aside because Shanks doesn't care about being the strongest like Zoro does, right? Shanks doesn't have any outlandish ambition per se, right? And I think there's something about that Mihawk has a tremendous sense of respect for, but from the perspective of swordsmanship, he cannot condone because he has, similar to Zoro, a sense of ambition that, you know, if this is what you're going to pursue, I'm here waiting for you. But Shanks no longer qualifies as one of those individuals that it'd be legitimate if they were to fight, right? That's just from my perspective. I think there's something about Shanks and the relationship why Mihawk has no interest. Because Shanks is there, like you mentioned a while ago, Randy. Shanks is on the island saying, "Hey, if you want to fight, I'm ready." But why would Mihawk say, "Nah, I'm good"? Is it pity? Or is it something else like, you know, you're not the kind of person I want to fight, right?
That's,
Again,
I mean, that's true
yeah.
too. It's like he only wants to fight people that are, you know, after the belt.
Yeah.
So, I don't necessarily care about who's stronger. I mean, obviously Mihawk is considered the world's strongest swordsman. From that perspective, you have to just say that Mihawk has the more
An expectation of being stronger, even
just with the sword. Like, he's more skilled with the sword, but
I agree
but
with
Shanks
that,
is probably more skilled with hockey. It's not. But what you're getting into more so talking about the relationship between the two and like what could lead to these situations. That's the more interesting thing to me. Like getting into the characterization of these characters. What brought them to these to these developments, and that's a flashback that I'm excited to see.
So I know you wanted this to be like a theory stream. So I mean, I guess if you want to, we can get into the theories now. So we've kind of just been like, you know, just talking, shooting the shit. But,
yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, people in the chat have been talking about how they like the shoot the shit sort of mentality also too. I mean, yeah, you know, like we should at least get a few theories in and
let's do that. Yeah, let's do that, and then we can go back to it. So just speaking of that, Randy, like in terms of Mihawk, I've seen. So let's just start with some of the various theories I've seen on that before we get to the video that you made that I want people to go watch and actually watch the video and listen to what Randy says, because it's very, you know, it compelled me. But in terms of Mihawk, you know, he seems to be, you know, people have theorized that he might actually be the true right hand of Shanks, right? And I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if it doesn't really seem likely, but I've seen videos on it. I've seen Reddit posts or whatever, people saying that Zoro, like Mihawk, have similar tendencies or inclinations to leave the crew. Right? For example, I wouldn't serve somebody that's weaker than me or doesn't have, that if Luffy didn't conduct himself the right way, Zoro would not be comfortable as a conqueror being under him, right? And so that's why Luffy's very unique, akin to Rocks, which was this video of being a conqueror that can compel other conquerors, potentially, there's only one right now, to be under him.
Just to jump in that real quick, because I do like that. I'm not a fan of the idea that Mihawk would have been, the true Ben Beckman, right? Especially considering that when we meet Shanks, like Ben Beckman is his right hand and all of that in Chapter 1. So that's all set up there. But I do like bringing up the idea, the parallel of Zoro saying that he would leave the crew, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what is Mihawk's personal ambition then? Because it means that, it's like if Zoro was going to leave Luffy, then he would still go on his journey to become the world's greatest swordsman and establish his own crew, maybe something along those lines. But Mihawk is just chilling on, the gloomy island that he's on and doing nothing, just cashing that warlord check. So I'm gonna need more.
So that's true. Like, we literally don't. People often talk about Shanks and how we don't know anything about him. We pretty much don't know anything about Mihawk. We've seen his demeanor, right? When he fights Zoro, he talks about a swordsman needing to master grace, and I think there's not enough emphasis that's placed on that, right? Wherein Zoro is a very power, and maybe Oda wants to draw a contrast, right? Maybe he wants in the final fight, Zoro's all power and everything, blowing stuff up with his sword swings and all that stuff. Whereas Mihawk, for the most part, has been a very graceful swordsman. But then again, that's because we haven't really seen much from him, right? No really named attacks. The only real thing that he did was cut an iceberg, but that was also a very graceful strike, right? Like, he swung his sword, and then it caused a very destructive explosion. Whereas Zoro's kind of portrayed as, Zoro's kind of portrayed as just being, an explosive fighter. And so there might be a contrast being drawn, or maybe Oda's trying to say that Zoro still isn't ready because he hasn't, whether it's taming the blades as we're seeing here in Wano, right, conquerors and everything, or whether it's him not gaining full control of his own self. Whatever Oda's trying to say, there's still a divide between Mihawk and Zoro, whether not just in terms of strength, but in terms of how they actually employ their swordsmanship. But just in terms of Shanks and Mihawk, I think that you're right. It's difficult for us to really comment on it, which is why it typically falls into the who's stronger category. But I think there's something there. I think it's actually very important as to why we don't know why their rivalry ended. We don't know who won the fights. Did they tie every time? And all of this, I do think, ties into character as a whole. Because why, Randy? It's the criticisms over Onigashima and Wano, and I never answered this earlier in terms of my criticism, but I'll get to shortly. But how Oda does his fights, most One Piece fans are not reading One Piece for the fights, right? This is pretty much everybody understands that in the community. We're there for the story and the mystery, which is why One Piece is so great right now, in my opinion, because we're getting more of that. The one criticism I had was over the fight not being long enough in terms of we need another chapter to expand more. But it wasn't because of the actual action. It was for me for the story. And this goes to your theory. So I'm going to try to remember these points because they all link together. But in terms of Shanks, right, I think that, fights aside, we need to understand that Oda will take the conflict between Mihawk and Shanks to provide greater context on his character, right? About what it says about him and who he is as a person. Because that's what Oda does with his fights, right? He takes fights and he uses them to expand on an individual's character, flashbacks, backstories. We see that in other shonen, but I don't know if other shonen have the, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Randy, because you understand more about film and cinematography and all that stuff, storyboard and everything. But I don't think we see from other shonen to the same level as Oda, think about Dragon Ball and Naruto and stuff, wherein they take a flashback all the time to provide as much context to a particular moment in a fight as Oda's story, right? Like Oda literally uses every means he can, or that he has at his disposal to expand on a character, when they're actually engaged in conflict, right? From dialogue to flashbacks or backstories or whatever. Think of Luffy versus Katakuri, right? Mochi being better than rubber, look at my face while I'm eating, on and on and on and on. Maybe I haven't read enough manga, right? People are in the chat spamming, you know what you're talking about. I haven't read as much manga as other people, but I could be wrong. But
I would probably say that I haven't either. But I would say that Oda's use of flashbacks is the best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Because even when you go and you look at film and television and things like that, it can seem very convoluted or contrived to throw flashbacks in, and it's very easy within the manga to discern what is a flashback, because Oda does the black paneling, and it's like we know what we're getting. It's a great way to lead in, and it almost never feels abrupt. It's welcomed. Whereas like you could be watching a television show or a movie, and out of nowhere you get this like wipe, or the camera pans into the sun and then comes back down from the sun, and now everybody's younger or whatever. And there's different ways to trick these things and make it happen. But more often than not, especially in a movie, the best thing to do is, in my opinion, to start with a compelling flashback and then never have another one. And do a time jump.
Did you watch The Witcher? People in the chat watch The Witcher on Netflix.
So I watched all of season 1 and I loved it, but I haven't had the time to get to season 2.
Okay, so I'm not gonna spoil you, but just in terms of how they construct it, right? Season 1, this is funny to me. People were talking about how they'd be watching The Witcher and they had no idea whether or not they were watching a flashback or the present moment. So you bring up
I had that issue.
Your experience. Yeah, from your experience, maybe you had even tweeted this out, but from your experience, watching a show, and you think that they provide a clear, because I cannot think of the benefit, like what exactly were you trying to achieve by making it hard for us as viewers to determine whether or not we're actually in the present or the past. And maybe the chat had the same experience if you guys watched The Witcher as well, wherein the lines were blurred. I had no idea because the characters looked the same, right? They didn't age. The world looked the same. It was very hard to tell, except for certain moments when you were in the past or the present. It didn't hurt the show quality per se, but maybe it was just very confusing unnecessarily, right? But just moving on, you're right. Oda, handles that definitely a lot better.
Yeah. Let me answer a couple super chats here. We got Scross26 said, love the stream. Ragnar has the dopest voice. Randy has the drippiest swag. Both have epic theories. Savage. Then we got Jason said, so I think after Wano, we will hear that the Blackbeard pirates have defeated the Red Hair pirates along with Mihawk, and then the Blackbeard pirates will hold the title of World's Strongest Crew. That's a wild thought, but that does not service a lot of the plot lines that have been set up in the story.
Especially just to jump in, I know you probably just quickly move on to another, donation you got or whatever. But just to briefly jump in, for a few minutes, with Mihawk, maybe with Shanks I can see that, but with Mihawk falling after Wano anonymously, we don't even see anything. We never saw him fight in the story.
No.
That, I think that would be like a backlash. You'd have One Piece trending on Twitter, what the.
Oda is never. All right. I feel like two things are certain to happen. All right. And that's Luffy will have that conversation that we're waiting for with Shanks, and Zoro will fight Mihawk. These have been promised to us. So, and he's not gonna bait that all this time and then just have, I know people think Shiryu is going to come over and kill Mihawk, and then oh well, now I have to avenge my mentor and go take down Shiryu, and it's he's gonna fight Shiryu too, but he's just gonna fight Shiryu first.
So here's the thing. So as cool as it sounds, right? Because a lot of headcanon sounds cool, but when you really break it down, like you're doing, Randy, Shiryu, right, who we don't know much about, defeating the world's strongest swordsman Mihawk, right? that sounds very problematic when you
Right.
really think about it, right? Like just like even sneaking up on him when this man is said to be clairvoyant, right? The most, people theorize that he has the best observation hockey. How does Shiryu defeat Mihawk? You know, like how underwhelming that would be, right? Whereas Oda's not gonna miss up in terms of just, how that's gonna be treading forever. When Zoro finally in the anime or when it's animated, when Zoro finally fights Mihawk again, right? When he's finally worthy of doing that, which I believe when he has a black blade. I don't think Zoro will be worthy of fighting Mihawk until he has a black blade. Black blade for one reason. There's another theory. It's because a black blade theorizes that there's another greatest swordsman out there. You've achieved. You have enough battles. You are now worthy, right? Because the thing is, you're only worthy of a black blade after you've engaged in enough battles, as Gyukimaru told us, right? And then Zoro was like, oh, so that's how you get a black blade, because Mihawk either lied to him or wasn't fully honest, right? He wanted, because one thing that I had written down on a script was, the problem that people had over Zoro bowing to Mihawk, begging him to train him. I do think Mihawk recognized or saw something in him, maybe akin to Shanks, who knows, about being willing to set ambition aside. And he said, quote unquote, it's always the ones like you or whatever that have to do this in order to do this, right? And he seemed to appreciate that or respect it. And that's why he set Zoro, bowing to him aside, which he probably would have not looked fondly upon for any other person. But he tells him that, he could have told him straight up how to get a black blade, but he didn't. And that's clearly implied in the story. He hinted at arm hockey, which probably being linked to it, but he never straight up told him, based on the flashbacks we've seen so far, that you get a black blade by doing this. He simply told him to go out there, see the world, get stronger. And then Zoro's like, oh, so that's really how you do it, as if Zoro had some doubts of his own. And so it seems as if Mihawk, right, in order to challenge him, Zoro on his own will actually have been worthy without having been trained by Mihawk, which I think is great to bring back the storyline of Zoro actually achieving greatness on his own, aside from the little help he gets along the way. Because compared to athletes, right, so many athletes, whether you like Tom Brady, whether you like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron, I'm only limited to basketball and football, sorry. But, so many athletes out there have relied on the help of mentors of other people. Greatness is not always found in and of itself. Oftentimes you rely on people greater than you.
You have
to
to
show
mold
you exactly, to show you, steps along the way. Even if you never even speak to these people, right? We as One Piece YouTubers, Randy, we have watched other people that have come before us, right? Like Cole, Rogers Base, Brago, they came before me, right? Others have come before you. And you yourself, Randy, are probably an example for other people that, even though I said that the window is narrowing, they're jumping in right now because they've watched your content as well. And so we've all been examples in some way, Similar to Zoro. Zoro's, he's not begging to teach me all the secrets, but show me a few things here and there so that I can surpass you majority-wise on my own. And that still has validity to it, I think, right? And so, yeah, I just went off on a tangent, but that's what I believe is going to happen. That's what I believe Oda is setting us up for. I don't know if you remember my overall point, Randy, that sometimes happens while I just start talking about stuff and I'll move on. But, that's just my perspective on what's going to take place. Is Zoro is going to be worthy of Mihawk when he has a black blade.
Yes.
And that's how, and not only stuff you said, but Shiryu.
Or he gets the black blade when he defeats Mihawk.
That's also possible. Possible.
It's either he walks into it with a black blade, or but then again, if he goes back and gets Shusui at the end of all of this, then he'll be walking in there with a black blade anyway.
And I'd agree with you, because that's true. But I think a black blade that he's earned, and that's what Oda got rid of it, is because he wants Zoro to earn it on his own, which is one of the comments I got about Enma from 33vil or Evil, right?
Yeah.
One Piece YouTuber on Twitter. He left a comment that I want us to address, but I do think that
that's my guy.
I do think that Zoro needs to, when he fights Mihawk again, so you said that he might earn it after defeating Mihawk, and I've seen comments from people on my other videos about Zoro's black blades. I can see that in the sense of, if a black blade is a mark of the world's greatest swordsman, and so that would imply indirectly, whether Oda reveals it later on when the story's over, that Ryuma was once the world's greatest swordsman because he was the only one, right? Absence of Mihawk and Zoro with a black blade, because we have not seen any other black blades in the story. And then, absence of Zoro and Ryuma being dead, only Mihawk has a black blade, and he's considered the world's strongest. So I can see that point you're making, Randy, wherein if Zoro defeats Mihawk, all of a sudden now he is the world's strongest. But the reveal of the duty of a blade, which I mentioned in the video, I think is very key, because we didn't really know that before, right? In which we knew about swords having curses, maybe in wills, but Oda now has taken it a step beyond that to say, viewing a sword as cursed is a weak mindset, in which these swords have a duty, and only the weak view them as cursed, wherein they have a will and a dream of their own, right? Whatever that is, we want to interpret it that way. And so, we'll see what happens at the end of Wano. I think that it would be dope if Zoro got a black blade for Enma at the end of Wano, although for whatever reason, I felt like the Wado Ichimonji should either happen first, but in the context of what we're talking about, Randy, if, again, this could kind of fit both theories.
The Wado is obviously the main one that needs to go black.
Yeah, and so like you said, if Zoro gets one after defeating Mihawk, then maybe the duty of Wado Ichimonji, the dream of Wado Ichimonji, is from Kuina's will. And so he gets a black blade from Enma from what happens in Wano, because Enma's very key to Wano and Oden. Kitetsu we're still learning more about, because that's very key to the Shimatsuki and that one Gorosei, right? But with Wado, maybe that turns black after defeating Mihawk. Because here's the one thing before we move on. That panel, even in the anime, when Zoro clashes with Mihawk, we never fully understand why the Wado Ichimonji never broke, right? It's never said. Oda has a lot of subtleties in there. But it's almost as if the will of that blade was so great that it could withstand a strike, unlike the other swords from the world's strongest swordsman, right?
Well, we also kind of got a little bit of hint in that in like 1033 when we had the Kozaburo flashback. Those other two swords that Zoro had were just sort of
special,
throwaways. They didn't have the same level of care and detail that went into the Wado.
But do you think that Mihawk, if he was truly determined that he couldn't break even Enma right now, you don't think that Mihawk could break Enma if he wanted to, with his black blade?
Oh yeah, I mean, like if he really put some some extra stank on that hit,
because
it's like this kid's all right, I'll use 1% of my power.
Because you probably also seen this from your comment section about Luffy plot armor, all that stuff, right? I view the Wado Ichimonji as a plot armor sword, right? But at the same time, it's also a sword with legitimacy in terms of the will that it carries. So some might say, oh, it's plot armor. That's why the sword didn't break, because it belongs to Kuina and it has to be there for the end, right? Wherein with the Wado Ichimonji, there's also the additional option of that sword carrying a will and a duty so great that Mihawk, there's a little panel of him looking at Zoro with a surprise when he does that secret technique or whatever, right? And Mihawk successfully destroys 2 swords right after that. But after that panel with Mihawk looking shocked, the only sword that endures or survives, just going off on their hint mirror, is the Wado Ichimonji. And so I do think that Oda is hinting at something. I'm sure there are other people that have pointed that out, but I think that Oda is trying to say something more about whether Zoro flowed his will to the blade in that moment. Because there's a lot of stuff. I saw people saying Ragnar talk about hockey with Randy. That's just a broad topic. I'm not going to get too much into it. In which there's so much now looking at what we know now about hockey, in which we're considering all the moments pre-time skip that are different when you reread the story, understanding that characters are perhaps hinting at certain attributes they had early on, whether it's Sanji and the Lunarians that we might be able to get into shortly, whether it's Zoro and having conquerors in hockey, at what stage did he actually have conquerors, knowing that not only can you knock people out or intimidate them, but you can also flow your will to a blade. Oda early on might not have fully determined how he wanted to showcase that. And so against Mihawk, maybe he had inadvertently flowed his conquering spirit that was beginning to develop to the Wado Ichimonji, because it had a will that could not be deterred.
See, now
right?
and
it didn't break as a result. And that's what Mihawk was shocked by, because he's clairvoyant, right? And so he's able to see fighting styles, what you're doing. Iva Vista, he's like, oh, you're the flower or whatever, swordsman or whatever, right? That's possible.
It may be that like the fact that sword didn't break is what What,
In that moment,
that's what made Mihawk say, "All right, tell me your name." I was trying to break all of your swords, but I only broke two of them.
Yeah.
So hey, what's up? You got something there, kid?
And Oda does seem to link, black blades being very rare to people with conquering spirits that are also very rare. And Kaido saying, only a very small few individuals can use this ability, right? Conqueror's Flow is what I call it. Some call it Advanced Conquerors, although I truly do believe that Advanced Conquerors is going to be something even more than what we've currently seen. It's like something else entirely. I personally wondered if, there's clear examples in the story of people with Conqueror's Haki having strong durability, but, that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, the whole, Zoro Haki debate and all of that, I've always been on the train that, like even in Alabasta, the whole fight with Mr. One, Zoro displayed several forms of Haki. There was no way he cut Da's bones without, subconsciously putting armament Haki on his blade. And, and it's like you go back to the panel at the end of Alabasta when Zoro is, he's either training or he's looking at the sword or, he's just off by himself outside of Alabarna. And he's just like, I have to figure out how to tap into that power again. So, and it's like, it's subtle, but it's there. And it's like there's elements of observation, as he finds his swords under the rocks and he's talking about hearing this breathing. And he's, we hear that Haki plumes at the brink of death, and that's, of course, where Zoro was at the time. So I think that Oda, always had plans for Haki in the story, but just maybe not sure exactly how he wanted to implement it or show it to us, until he started, coloring it in.
Hey, Randy, I'm going to take a piss real quick, right? I'll be right back. Just a quick.
Sure.
I'm going to pass real quick. But then I want to get into your theory about the Rocks Pirates, because I thought a lot about it recently.
Sure, we'll do that. Yeah. Let's see here. All right. So our guy Vinland is taking a quick break. Let's see if there's any super chats that I missed. I got Chin. What if Kuina's soul is in the Wado Ichimonji? Odin's in Enma's, and Ryuma's is in Shusui's. Now, I've talked about stuff like this before. And not Kuina's soul being in Wado, but, I did mention, like, what if there was a part of Odin's sword in Enma? I guess I should probably wait for Ragnar to come back. Let's see. Yeah. So how's everybody doing, guys? I'm just catching up on the chat here. I want to thank everybody for being here. If you just joined, Ragnar will be right back. We have 429 people in here. Thanks so much. Like the stream. Subscribe if you haven't. There'll be more collabs like this in the future. We'll try and make this a regular thing for break weeks. And let's see. Alright. We got my guy Ryo in here. Everybody's saying hi to him. King J, black blades are blades with satisfied wills. Watto will turn black once its dream is satisfied, and that is by beating Mihawk. Yeah, I can totally get him on board with that.
That's the thing. A lot of people truly believe that Zoro's going to get back up, and he's not going to... I don't think he's going to... If that were possible, he's going to defeat Kaido, right? But here's the thing. Enma's dream is not so much to defeat Kaido as it is to open Wano's borders, right? And so Zoro has played a part in terms of defeating King. This is just one of the, the criticisms I would have.
Unless
Another one.
Unless Wano gets annexed.
Extends, you mean?
No, annexed. Like, if the world government gets in there, like, I still think that there's a possibility that we beat Kaido, but the world government takes over Wano. And then they take Momonosuke and they leave Wano. And then it's not until they've finally defeated the world government that they get access to Wano back for Momonosuke to then achieve his dream of becoming Shogun.
And maybe, so I saw people saying that Zunisha might take the people of Wano and relocate them, but and the world government gets the resources, because I just can't imagine a scenario in which the people are still slaves, but now to the world government, forced to being udon, mining, all that kind of stuff. So I mean, yeah, I guess it really does depend. But again, in the context of prolonging, the fights and awakening the commanders, I would also view similarly, the same context of us having to free Wano again. Maybe you're right, Randy, in terms of them. We saw that ominous panel with Garp and Shirahoshi and finding about the Reverie, and people theorizing, they're going to go for Shirahoshi and Fishman Island now. Maybe they go for Wano now. And Imu's like, what, great cleansing, take over everything, screw, F these people.
Right.
Like, enough is enough. Like, stop this before anything bad happens. I can see that happening, if they go for everything. And then Luffy has to now, because of that, go to his, he has the motivation, right? Because right now there's no motivation for him to do so. But what will give him the motivation aside from Sabo's capture? If Sabo was not captured, he needs a motivation to go to Mary Joie and take on Imu. And one of those might be... is there any?
So I actually have a theory for that, right? Because I'm still skeptical if Sabo is captured, right? I think that it's possible, right? And it's well within Oda's wheelhouse to just give us Marineford 2.0 and have us have Sabo is the new ace, but this time Luffy actually saves his brother, right?
Yeah.
But, then there's also, what Oda said at Jump Festo, where he's like, Sabo, ... Vivi, ... Hancock, ... right? Now, I truly believe that Vivi is going to reunite with the Straw Hats, especially before they get to Elbaf, since she was so prevalent in Little Garden,
Yeah.
So, and it just, like, story structure. You say you're going to come back to the crew, you're going to come back to the crew. Vivi's coming back. So now, one of the older theories on my channel is that, Sabo has a Viver card to Luffy, and so do Leo and Sai, all of which were at the Reverie. Any one of those three people, or all of them together, or, one or two of them, could be transporting Vivi to the Straw Hats for safekeeping after any of the events that happened at the Reverie. Now, what I think could bring Luffy also to Mary Joie is actually Hancock. Because you go back to Amazon Lily, and it was so prevalent, and it was so based within everything, just learning about the slavery, the tattoo, everything like that. So Hancock is still to this day essentially the property of the world government. So if she gets captured during this whole raid against the warlords, right? The second they see that tattoo, she's going to fall back into the hands of the Celestial Dragons. And if Luffy learns that and then remembers all of the things that Hancock has done for him, taking him to Impel Down, right? Risking her status, risking all of this stuff, sheltering him in her homeland after Marineford, it's definitely going to be a driving force, and I think that Hancock is going to play a massive role in a return to Marineford.
And the
So
fact that Kobe was sent to go after, I think, is kind of key as well. And the fact that he knows that the Strats are on Wano based on what Drake probably should have told him. Although I don't know if Drake actually met them yet. I don't know about that. But he's getting information. And so maybe he's been informed about what's been going on. So maybe he relayed that to Boa Hancock. But so this goes back to what I was saying earlier in terms of, an old theory I made about Monkey D. Dragon coming to Wano. And I predicated it upon the fact that chapter 1, 'cause I'm going to remake the video and drop it again. It's a shorter version, more concise. But Dragon, there's a hint in chapter 1 where we appear to be introduced first to Roger. Set Roger aside because I view him as a prologue, as I mentioned in a recent video. But in chapter 1, at the very beginning, we're introduced to Luffy, and then we meet Shanks. But I've always wondered if we were subtly introduced to another character without truly seeing them. And you might see where I'm going with this. There's the wind. It says, there's actually a text box, right, that says the east wind or whatever it is blowing. For whatever reason, right? Writers do things for very specific reasons. And he mentions the wind blowing. And then, of course, we go to Impo Down, right? And we find out that Ivanko, right, is flat with Dragon. What direction are you staying? Or are you staring at, right? And Dragon's kind of silent, and he's looking at obviously the direction where Luffy and his family used to be, right? And so I thought to myself, what if Dragon has been constantly watching over his son? And he's not the deadbeat father archetype that people keep on trying to, subscribe to him, akin to other not Dragon Ball, but other shonen characters, right? Wherein Dragon has always been watching over Luffy all the time.
Well, you see that flashback too. You see the flashback with Eva coming up to him and saying like, "Oh, you're looking in that direction again," or something.
Exactly. And so I feel as if right now with Wano, Dragon knows where Luffy is, and he's always been watching over his son. But Dragon's philosophy and understanding of fate and destiny, and Luffy almost being a grown man, depending on how you view him, he's 18. So in some places he is, but Japan, I don't know if they changed the laws, but I think that it was 20, but maybe it's 18 now. They changed the laws or whatever. But Luffy's pretty much a young.
He's 19 man. Anyway, so he's a man.
Yeah, and so you have to let people grow up and live their lives, and then maybe Dragon having an understanding of the potential of Luffy and having to see this play out, right? Akin to Ace dying, right? And just people sitting back, Rayleigh and other people. And so I feel like with Dragon, he had that moment in Low Town where he said, what is your answer, right? We have to give them our answer. Being a pirate, that's fine too. He was clearly talking about his son. He is fully aware of what Luffy is doing. And he's just kind of like, sitting back and watching. But as the protective father that he is, with his powers or whatever, which I think is going to be epic upon reveal, I truly believe it's a Win Logia. But
I've thought it was a win. I've thought it was a Win Logia since the early 2000s.
Right? Yeah. We all did. Honestly, as a mangaka, bro, even if I was not gonna do that, and I see my fans saying that, how could I resist? Right? Making Dragon a powerful Win Logia, you have to make him that, because it's the thing. The D will bring forth another storm, right? Monkey D. Dragon, the most powerful D right now, maybe outside of Blackbeard, maybe.
But there's even more layers to all of that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have been a big proponent of the Revolutionary Army coming to Wano, and it's not only the dragon bit, which is built in, because there's so much about, and even Chrissy brings this up a lot. It's just like how much this arc is about fathers, right? Like whether it's with Momonosuke and Odin, whether it's with Kaido and Yamato, whether it's with Hiyori, and there's Sanji dealing with the aftermath of Judge and everything, even with Queen. Like there's elements of this. For Luffy not to have his father show up in this arc would be like a little bit of a miss. And then you also have lines like, the world doesn't need 2 dragons, well, how about 3? But then there's actual real story relevance too, where everything in Dressrosa with Sabo, Hack, and Koala is just about coming to Wano. These weapons are being manufactured in Wano. The drunken iron ore is in Wano. And there's been enough time between now and the Reverie where they could and very well should pull up or are already on Wano. And I've speculated that the reason Oda has broken up these acts and put these act breaks here is so that most of the fandom isn't like fully expecting or catches on too much to what's going on, right? So that like if we did have another act break, right, we would actually have a little bit of a time jump, and we would understand that, like, oh, the Revolutionary Army's been here the whole time. They've been dismantling all of the factories, right? So then you have the world government that's planning to annex and come in, right? Because CP0 sat with Orochi, and they're like, oh, hey, you know, like, Doflamingo's out of the picture, so now we have to deal directly with you so that we can funnel our secret wars and do all of this stuff. And then he's
I
like,
think that the hints are all there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and
Because like going off what you're saying, Randy, is like there's just so much build up to, you know, you ask two questions. You have Dragon and Shanks. We're going to meet again, right? Promise you return this hat to me. The day will come when we meet again. One of them, I think, has to be the one that we meet soon. Although I personally theorize that one of them, based on their words, you know, the concept of broken promise in One Piece, right? So Zoro-boys' broken promise, Ace's broken promise. Either you believe that Luffy is the character to stop breaking promises and to fulfill each promise he makes, so he'll meet Shanks again, return the hat to him, or maybe if Luffy is Zoro-boy, as he's been hinted at being, right, the return of Zoro-boy's reincarnation or whatever, he is going to break his promise to Shanks, as so many of the Straw Hat wielders have done. But it's not so much a broken promise as it is a new interpretation of that promise, perhaps, right? Wherein, you know, Shanks crying, and Roger dies, right? And then Shanks is at the execution. He gives the hat to Luffy, and then Shanks says some words, and then maybe Luffy does fulfill it, or maybe Luffy stumbles on Shanks when he's dying, and then he gives the hat back. So he keeps the promise, but Shanks is dead. And he's like, you know, become a pirate. We see Ace when he dies, right? He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I broke my promise to you. People think that Ace was supposed to be Joy-Boy. You see these themes over and over again in terms of the concept of broken promise and what it means for the story. But truly, Oda is saying that the promise has never been broken, that it's the concept of inherited will, right? It was passed down, it has been kept. Just because someone doesn't keep a promise in the immediacy of a moment or on time doesn't mean they're not going to keep it, right?
Right.
And so, and it's also possible for others to keep the promise for another person. It's a very, I think it's a very beautiful take on promises and bonds and that whole entire concept, right? That's, you know, another discussion, but yeah, in terms of Dragon coming to Wano, I think you know, there's a lot of evidence set up.
Yeah, we're in a weird time of just One Piece in general, where Wano has enough evidence to be the culmination of so many things that have been set up, right? Because it's like, and it almost seems crazy that the Revolutionary Army totally makes sense coming to Wano. Blackbeard and Moria totally makes sense coming to Wano. Shanks totally makes sense coming to Wano. And then it's like, will all of this happen, or does only one of these things get to happen? And then it's like you sit here and you try and choose which one is the best one. And it's like, is Oda just going to go balls to the walls and give us all of it? That just sounds like fan fiction. But then you look at the text, and it's like, realistically, this all really could happen.
All of it, yeah, because you see Zunisha showing up. I know Jobo has a theory about spirits showing up. And there seems to be something about Wano in terms of ties to the ancient kingdom in which Oda has this need. Like, this is a pivotal moment in the story that I think a lot of people are actually sleeping on. Right? We're so caught up with, you know, Gear 5 and, you know, Kaido and what else could happen, right? Awakening, all this stuff. But and even the legendary Devil Fruit, set that all aside, there's something happening with all of these forces showing up right now that people are overlooking. And all you just go back to Sengoku and Akainu. Why is it Wano? Why is it Wano? And that line is pivotal right now in terms of why everybody is showing up here. And it, again, symbolism, metaphor, whatever it is, whatever the exact literary terminology is, there's something Oda is suggesting by all of this taking place that we'll look back on and say that's what he meant, right? Where everybody, 20 years, even from the Strong World movie that's not canon supposedly, although
which by the way, that is
Shiki.
Still one of my favorite theories that you ever did, man, was the one about Shiki. Like
the one with Shiki, but me speaking in a very exaggerated tone back then when I was making the videos. But yeah, the 20-year prophecy. Other people have touched upon it now, but, you know, Oda, I think. So, who was it again? Grand Line Review dropped a video about, you know, the new Gear 5, just about Niue, right? I don't know if you saw that, the Niue Gear 5 or whatever, and combining gears, and how Oda had a little side story with, you know, Niue type of mythical creature defeating a strange opponent that had taken over Wano. And Oda basically, you know, writers and artists sometimes will use early templates in a story to practice for what they want to do later on. And maybe you can see where I'm going with this, Randy, in which they'll experiment, right? They'll kind of draw for fun. They'll do certain things because they're preparing themselves for the moment they have to actually execute it in the current story. And so with Luffy's next gear, I guarantee you, and maybe you agree with this, Oda has already practiced drawing different styles, different things, leaving hints here and there, right? Garland's video, you know, drawing the patterns and everything. He's already testing out how he actually wants it to go when he gets to that moment, because he's not just gonna, you know, just jump into a gear 5 or whatever and then just draw it. He's already been testing it out, I think, drawing, you know, early drafts and stuff, leaving hints in the story as he's drawn certain things that will culminate, right? Because for example, when I make videos, one of the motivators in terms of how I will like edit clips, because I think that's something that I've kind of like done on my own that's different from other YouTubers trying to stand out, is I'll mash together clips to try and like bring a fight to life that isn't the perfect animation, right? But like it actually kind of like conveys a sense of, okay, that's kind of cool. Maybe people like it, some people don't. But a thumbnail is sometimes important to me in terms of that, or a title, or how I'm writing certain things. I think with Oda and artists in general, they sometimes have inspiration, you could call it, right? That leads them to fully understand what they want to do in a moment. And so the idea basically is Oda's been setting up certain things in the story that have led to this moment, like, hey, this is where we're heading. Even though you might feel like it's rushed or whatever, which is one of the criticisms, it's going to culminate in something that leaves people saying Wano is a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10 at the very least, right? In terms of being memorable. And just to quickly get back onto the topic with Dragon, I wanted to mention inversion and a unique twist on inversion in which Luffy considers Shanks a role model, but I also stretch that to be, you know, play on the word, rubber, but, you know, father figure, right?
Yeah.
And so his actual father is Dragon, right? And so inversion, Shanks shows up to end the war on Marineford. This war, many have questioned the interpretation of Oda's interview. Was he talking about the final war or this war? This war seems to be pretty big in its own, you know, case. Dragon showing up for this war, right? In which he is the one. So you have Shanks showing up for the Battle of the Best. You have Monkey D. Dragon showing up for Wano. And then you might have Luffy showing up, obviously, for the final war, right? So one after the other. You have the role model, the actual father, right? So father figure, role model, actual father, and then Luffy, who's inherited, you know, aspects of each, biological as well as nurture. But Monkey D. Dragon showing up to Wano and finally meeting his son, because we have Cypher Pole, right? They've been tracking their movements. We have, like you mentioned,
thing I was going to get into.
Yeah, all the things that you've mentioned. O'Hara's video briefly touching on that. Inherited will, the two brothers that have a shared inherited will from Ace, right? A shared relationship to Luffy's father, the reverie overlapping with Wano, and all the things we need to see in terms of why Oda chose to mix in the reverie with Wano. And once again, right now in this moment, curiously, we see from the Goro saying chapter 1037, them mentioning the reverie again, how it's over and chaos that they don't fully elaborate on. They don't mention Sabo being captured. They mention the chaos and it being a disaster, not a positive thing. Like, oh yeah, we won. We caught the second commander, you know, the revolutionaries, the first commander, whatever.
Oh no.
You know, yeah, they don't mention anything about that.
Sounds like then things didn't go right.
It sounds like things did, yeah, it did not go right. And we're reached a place in the story it seems like we're in. Now is the time, from Dragon's words, to give the world our answer, right? That basically is where I see where we're at right now. We're in the Yonko are done after this, right? It's pretty much Blackbeard and Shanks. Yeah, they're Yonko, but there's a deeper symbolism in their own collision that we could theorize on, but you know, that's a whole different thing. But now I think is the perfect time. I don't see Dragon showing up after, you know, Shanks and Blackbeard fight and the fall of them, and then him waiting till Elbaf. Now seems like the perfect time. And O'Hara's video really focuses on the Sabo aspect. My video had kind of touched upon, you know, like I mentioned earlier, Dragon constantly watching over his son. I'm going to make the video again for people can see that. But combine those two things, kind of hint at, you know, the reunion, right? Oh, there's another video. Is it your video? I think it's your video, right? You dropped a video about Marco and the island, Sphinx Island.
Yeah.
Sphinx Island. Okay, so yeah, so let's throw Randy in there as well, right? This was a great there. I watched this video, and it made sense to me. I think I was on Twitter commented on it about how after Wano, it makes a lot of sense for us to have a cooldown period because you're not just going to go from one war to another war, which Elbaf should be a big conflict as well, right? It's a big island, unlike Zoe. And Zoe actually had like a mini war, but it was kind of a flashback, right? Whereas when we went there, and it was more cool. So I think that the next arc should be a moment for cooldown, but expansion of mystery, story, rest. Oda does that regularly.
For at least a little bit. I mean, it can end with bang. Like I had suggested that, it is that cool down period where everybody is healing, right? Say hypothetically, whether it makes sense for them to go to Sphinx Island, whether Marco sacrifices himself or not. If they have to return him there or anything, but it's just, I think in the story we need that moment where Luffy goes to Ace's grave, and just acknowledges his greatest weakness as maybe now, like
a strength,
kind of, all right, say hypothetically he's beaten Kaido at this point, right? And he's recovering and he's walking over, and maybe there was still some other loss that was suffered during Wano that we haven't gotten to yet. And he's at Ace's grave, and he's just kind of thinking, like, what great pirate am I? Like, what's the point of this? And then, maybe realizes that, in order to truly be free, he has to free everyone. And that's where he makes a vow to go against the world government.
It's interesting, Randy. I had just like 2 points based on what you just said just now. The cool thing about the Ace novels is, from what I read, the summary, because I don't have a book copy, but they mentioned about Ace, how he was actually supposed to be Ben Beckman had said to Shanks that maybe he should have been a revolutionary. He had that personality. It's cool how Sabo has inherited the devil fruit, but at the same time, you mentioned going to the grave, and what is Luffy's renewed purpose? How is he going to see the world after he leaves Wano? The maturity, again, in the past, in Japan, what it used to be from what I saw culturally was you came of age when you're 20. Luffy's definitely between 19 and 20 now. I don't know how old. He's not, when it first started, he was 19, but he's somewhere between. It's just curious that, coming of age, becoming Joy Boy in Wano, 20 years later, Luffy almost being 20. It is a strange coincidence. Luffy maturing, and what type of worldview will he have? Will he still just be the kind of, I don't do whatever I want after Wano? Or will he hold on to both elements in his, character evolution? I do think that is important. He's not going to be the same person. I just can't see that happening after he meets his father again and Sabo. He's definitely going to hold on to certain traits that we've fallen in love with. But I think that, there's nothing wrong with him evolving his perspective, right? Morge even has a video where he talks about, right, where with Enies Lobby, and that being the moment that Luffy had a shift, right, of not just becoming Pirate King, but challenging the entire world, right? Obviously declaring war on the world, and how, his whatever his motivations are, it's still a shift in his character, right?
And I think he needs to refocus on that.
Yeah,
and that
exactly.
And that's been. And he's moved away from that shifting because everything's been so Yonko focused, and even more so Scabbard focused. And the greatest thing is going to be moving away from Wano and just leaving that part aside so we can focus on all these other things. Everybody talks about it. It's very obvious in the story that, there's all these different inversions in with arcs, Dressrosa, Alabasta, and all that stuff. And we see elements that come in each arc, and we're seeing a lot of different arcs playing into Wano. There's obvious Enies Lobby, influence here. There's a lot of Thriller Bark influence. There's even Alabasta influence. But what we haven't gotten yet in the story is an inversion on the nothing happened moment. That moment where everybody has been like fighting and they think the fight is over, and then it's not, and it's like, and Kuma was realistically a good guy, and he left that situation with he hurt Zoro bad, but I mean, he didn't kill him.
But it felt like a test. It felt like it was his final words. He said,
exactly.
He said, "Dragon, your son has found a very good crew," and it hints at something else. But
Right, exactly. So I still think that Oda's going to give us another nothing happened moment, but it isn't going to be a test. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if Sanji's going to necessarily play into that because he was part of the original nothing happened moment. You know, it would be interesting if Vegapunk was that person. You know, like he shows up to Wano because there's
So
that's another person that can really show.
So I didn't fully watch O'Hara's entire video. I watched like a little bit of it. I was busy. But
and then, now, which O'Hara are we talking about?
This is O'Hara the Fox. O'Hara the Fox. So
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
O'Hara, German O'Hara. O'Hara that's currently Japan. Yeah.
Which
So
what did he make a video?
It's called about Monkey the Dragon. Basically, it says Sabo is going to bring Vivi and Dragon back to Wano. Something that I think that you would really enjoy watching if you haven't seen it yet.
So
it doesn't fully focus. Yeah, so it doesn't really focus. It doesn't fully focus on Dragon. It focuses on just mainly Sabo. So that's kind of the differentiation between my idea and his. But he kind of talks about in terms of what I'm talking about inversion. So, you know, during Marineford, Ace died to save Luffy. You know, Luffy failed to save his brother, even though he saved him. I see it as, but you know, Ace gave up his life, and so it ultimately failed in terms of, you know, just looking at results. In terms of Marineford, you mentioned a nothing happened moment, you know, somebody else sacrificing themselves, but, you know, so I'm trying to interpret what you mean by inversion in terms of, you know, Zoro's moment, he kind of sacrificed himself and he succeeded, right? So the inversion of that would be you sacrifice yourself, but you fail, or you don't sacrifice yourself and you succeed. Those are only, you know, the two inversions you could have. So I would see it as someone sacrificing themselves and they fail, would be the ratings of failure. Me personally, I see Luffy sacrificing himself, but at the end of it, because of all the forces that he's facing, it looks like it's about to fail, and they need somebody else to come in to help them, right? I feel
so
like
there's a couple of different things that could happen, right? Because there's so many different players in all of this, right? Hypothetically, Vegapunk could show up. He has ties to both Momonosuke and Sanji, probably more than anyone, right? So if he shows up to Wano, it's because he wants to learn more about Momonosuke's fruit, or he wants to talk to Sanji and tell us more about Mads and Judge. So that's a situation that could really go either way, whether it's good or bad. There's a situation where Blackbeard shows up, right, and runs into somebody, you know, like who necessarily knows. It's better if Luffy is the one that goes up against that. But I want a situation where Luffy is out, similar to Thriller Bark, and it's someone else in the crew that needs to handle something. That's why I said if they went to Sphinx Island, it'd be cool if Weevil showed up and then Zoro had to like fight Weevil. But then the other thing too, which I didn't mention in the video, which I kind of just thought while we were talking here, is the government is after Weevil. So so an inversion of the nothing happened moment would be it getting interrupted, right? So now everybody feels like things are, you know, really bad or whatever because everybody's hurt. Zoro's
I do love that. Yeah.
Then the Marines show up to Sphinx Island, and now they have to get out of there, and that forces them to go somewhere else. Elbaf.
So I can see Oda doing that, where like the end of Wano is just so chaotic, and like we don't know what's going on. And Zunisha, Weevil, all these people, like, bro, what is going to happen now, right? But at the same time, I can kind of see it as if, you know, Oda wants to end up Wano in a way that it's not just memorable, but leaves us. See, when we ended Dressrosa, right? When we got Gear 4 and Luffy uses Gear 4, it's like it's over, right? It's like it's epic, it's over. People have, you know, looking back on it, do they like Gear 4, do they like Bound Man or not, right? It is what it is. But it ended on that
the same way that Alabasta ended,
exactly.
And we went on.
But with Wano, I feel like in order to take down Kaido, who is regarded as the strongest creature, strongest pirate, we find out, right? Because we thought it was the strongest creature, right? And we thought because, you know, maybe he's stronger or whatever. We get it to Finley, we said, both in the Ace novel as well as now, Kaido is pretty much the strongest pirate at the moment. Now, I have, again, the Shanks fighting video, I have some thoughts on that, wherein Shanks generally might be weaker than Kaido, but when he gets angry based on what the Ace novel says, he might be stronger, but that's different. But yeah, Kaido right now definitely seems to be the strongest. In order for Luffy to believe we take down a character like that, Oda is thinking about the future of this series. And the thing about when you're designing the story...
Let me pause you right there for a second.
Yeah.
Hold on. Talk with the chat for a bit, and I'll be right back in 30 seconds.
Okay. So I'm going to repeat this when Randy gets back, right? But this is just for the chat. So when when Oda's designing his story, right, and we have him considering the future of what's going to happen, okay, he has to be thinking about expectations. And so if Kaido is the strongest, and the chat can respond until Randy gets back. I don't know when he's gonna get back. I'll be reading the chat. But if Kaido falls right now and Luffy does it alone with new gear 4, new gear 5, whatever you believe it's gonna be, gear 5, gear 0, whatever it is. I know people say gear 5 is for Blackbeard, whatever. What do we have to look forward to? And that's very important when you're writing a story, right? Again, let me know if you disagree. But if Kaido falls right now and Luffy does it alone with an epic, new gear moment, we're going to be considering, which is natural for shonen as shonen readers, how strong is Luffy? He defeated Kaido. If Kaido's stronger than Shanks, Luffy's stronger than Shanks, why do we care if they meet again when Luffy's stronger than him, right? How much stronger is another question. Why do we care about Blackbeard? If Luffy, it raises a lot of questions, right? Like and I said this before, and some of you that subscribe to my channel might align with it. If Luffy defeats Kaido, Blackbeard needs a third devil fruit. It's just point blank period, right? Like you can't take down Kaido and have us looking at Blackbeard as a natural threat anymore. I know some people think that Blackbeard, with his mastery of the Gurgur no Mi, Earthquake, and the Yami Yami no Mi, that somehow Blackbeard is, stronger than Kaido right now, but I just don't see that. I feel like if
I'm back.
If Blackbeard and Kaido were to fight right now, my bet would be, that's an interesting question, because how can I say that Blackbeard is going to lose to Kaido if Luffy's going to beat Kaido right now? What do you think about that, Randy? Right? Isn't that strange? Like I'm thinking about the opponent. That's what I was saying that the chat was. I was in the chat that Oda has to set up his story for expectations. He's fully aware of what his audience wants. If Luffy defeats Kaido alone, new gear, whatever it is, gear 5, gear 0, whatever people think it's going to be, a gear 4 Tiger, whatever, then you're going to naturally look forward to, if you do in any shonen, to the next opponent, right? Look at Naruto, for example. Sasuke defeats Deidara, whatever his name is, right? Okay, well, Itachi's next, right? And you go down the list. After Itachi, Naruto's next, right? You're looking forward to the next fight continuously. And so in One Piece, right, Zoro defeats King of the Wildfire. Immediately, people were talking about Shiryu of the Rain being stronger than King and looking forward to that fight, right? Does he have advanced conquerors, right? Asking all those questions.
In One Piece, see, this is the thing that really just sort of throws me off with the community and all of that, and it's and I, coming up in the the forum era and all of this stuff, like I remember conversations like that, and it was like the power scaling stuff. Like we used to give it its own topic, and then let everybody talk in that, and then everything else was like power scaling, scaling free. And the thing about One Piece is that One Piece isn't Dragon Ball, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a situation where the next person needs to be stronger and all of this. Now I think that Luffy wants to be strong and all of that. I mean, he's even said this aloud. But the cool thing about One Piece is the quirkiness of it, that this character can be stronger than the other person because of the way that they utilize their fruit, not because their punch packs more heat than the next thing. So putting King above Shiryu without seeing anything from Shiryu, right? I don't know about that. You're right. There's like tactics and other things that come in play with his devil fruit, so it's not always solely upon strength. And there's about what kind of devil fruit you have and stuff. I saw in your comment section, Ryu Reaper, I think it's Ryu Reaper or whatever. He mentioned, oh no, is it him? I think I lost where he placed it at. Somebody, it might have been Ryu Reaper, whoever it was. Sorry if I lost your name. They mentioned that's where the theory is flawed, because Luffy is not going to solo Kaido. I think he's implying that Luffy's gotten a lot of help from other damage Kaido has taken, and Kaido holding up an entire island. I personally don't know how much credence I give to that, because again, Kaido has a Zoan healing factor, mythical Zoan, all that kind of stuff, high durability. I don't know if we've ever seen him, Oda imply, maybe I forget from the chapters, Oda imply that Kaido is weakening from his fights, right? I definitely seen, the implication from Yamato or Momonosuke that Kaido is weakening from holding up the island, right?
that he's using up some strength to do so. But I don't remember him or Oda actually saying that Kaido has taken, a significant amount of damage. Like we talk about percentages, right? What percentage of strength is Kaido at while he's fighting Luffy? In the recent chapter, Luffy points out Kaido getting stronger.
Yeah.
You guys remember that, right? He's
Drunken
getting
Master
stronger.
style.
He's not getting weaker. He's getting stronger from his Drunken Master style. And then we also have the awakening aspect. So I personally would like to see Oda write it in a way that, some of you might think it's not believable, so you prefer for Kaido to be weakened. I think a lot of people are sick of Luffy getting wins over people that have already been, damaged or whatever in some other way. I think that even though it might seem like a stretch in terms of Luffy getting a victory, we would like to see Luffy, given everything that's been set up, all the hype, the Joy Boy stuff, everything, that Oda's kind of putting things in place to make us really feel as if, okay, this needed to happen, and it might be believable based on his quick advancement, right? It seems rushed, whatever. The other fights I felt like were rushed, but it is what it is, that Luffy will be able to take down the world's strongest creature, the world's strongest pirate, here in this moment on his own. The only exception to that idea is the Zoro killing Kaido theory, but that would be like after Kaido's defeated. I do not see Zoro and Luffy tag teaming Kaido together. And there are, again, others that would criticize it, saying Luffy needs this for himself, right? The narrative, everything that's in play. It's as if Oda is ready to say, look, Luffy's going to take down the world's strongest pirate. And now, look, whatever problems that creates in terms of people saying, hey, Luffy took down the world's strongest pirate, does that make him now the world's strongest pirate, right? That's for after Wano, which is why
the process of elimination, or if Big News Morgans is making the headline.
Yeah, and which is why I said to Randy earlier, if you guys remember in the chat, like, I think that would set up, and I know Joygo made a video on this, although it's related to the legendary fruit that was mentioned in 1037. I feel as if that sets up perfectly for Blackbeard to get that prophesized, theorized, third and final devil fruit, because it creates, it's required, right? Like, you need to give this character, unless you truly believe him having the Yami no Mi and Gura no Mi is enough for.
Well, that's why I like, Evil's through Evil's video about Blackbeard,
the octopus,
being an octopus, and that's because I never said that he had an octopus fruit, but I believe that Blackbeard already has the third fruit.
His final fruit, yeah.
Like he's always had it, and whatever fruit that is what allowed him to eat the other two fruits. That just makes sense to me, and it's probably a Zoan, so that he has all three types.
And he just never showed it, because we're looking back at his fights, we never saw in the actual manga, right, the conclusion of the Ace fight, even though they clashed, right, with the fire and the darkness. We don't know per se that that's the final blow that took out Ace, right? We don't know what happened after the collision of fire and darkness, right, the sun versus the darkness speech that Blackbeard gave. We know that the little hat blew off, and then they showed it thematically to say, okay, Ace had lost, but we don't actually know what Blackbeard had done in that fight. Same with Whitebeard, right? Like, Blackbeard shows up, Whitebeard's already heavily weakened. We've never seen Blackbeard have to be in a position where he had to go all out in his fights, right? So he kind of relies on certain abilities. We also don't know what conditions, if he does have another fruit, right, might need to be fulfilled for him to use it.
I've seen suggestions that, like, Blackbeard needs total darkness in order to manipulate the full potential of his fruit.
The Yami no Mi, yeah. But in terms of like, a mythical Zoan, who knows what that is. This is like further speculation, but just the main point is, like, after Kaido falls, Oda, like most writers, is going to create another villain. You look at Naruto, Madara falls. There really was no need for Kaguya aside from story exposition, right? But after Madara falls, you get Kaguya, right? Before Madara, you had progression. You had Toby, like, constantly providing a new enemy that's more threatening. That's kind of the formula. And so Kaido falls, you need a big baddie out there. I don't know if we're going to get Imu immediately. I think we're going to get Blackbeard. Blackbeard falls, and then you have the reveal of Imu or whatever that is, right? And that's what Oda's kind of set up. But Randy, do you want to get to some of the theories that it sent me?
What's that?
Oh, do you want to get to some of the theories that people had sent me in my community posts?
Oh, yeah.
Because I promised them. I promised them I'd address some of it. We haven't really touched on any other stuff. They're probably like, "Why'd I bother commenting?" Right? Like, okay, so we got Colin. We have Colin J. Derby, and he says, "I think that before Luffy can leave Onigashima, the Marines and Cypher Pole are going to show up and try to arrest the newly crowned Emperor of the Sea, Luffy. We saw that Lucci is trying to kill Nigga Robin, as well as, and I feel like this is where the blah blah blah, because they need Luffy's help for Sabo's sake, and they don't have a lot of time. I have a okay. So basically, what he's saying is, they feel like they're good. So they mentioned in 1037, right? Like, we can take some casualties, people can disappear, and because the Yonko are fighting, nobody's going to notice that there are other targets that the Gorosei have that Oden explicitly mentioned. We know who's who. We know Robin and clearly Luffy, if you look at, Imusama targeting certain posters.
Right.
And so what Colin is trying to say is they're probably going to try and kidnap or capture Luffy. And this is an alternative theory. I wouldn't actually be against it, Randy, if Luffy got captured at the end of Wano, and then he got taken to, if Sabo got captured and then they're all at Mer Joie. Because that's one way we talked about earlier, right? Like, how are they going to...
So here's the thing, and I've been wanting to make a video on this for a little bit too. Is I do like that the inversion of Impel Down could be Luffy in Ace's place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then now we get, instead of Luffy running through Impel Down, we have the crew breaking in, or actually something separate, right? What if the Grand Fleet were the ones that went into Impel Down and got Luffy and then freed people out? Now, like, we have Bon Clay, now Doflamingo's back into the picture and all this. And the reason I bring this up is that we still haven't seen what that event that the Grand Fleet is supposed to be known for is going to be, but there was a text box at the at the end of Dressrosa talking about that all of these people would be involved in some sort of great event that would shape the course of the story, right? And the last time that we actually saw something like that within the story was at the end of the Bonaro Island fight.
Yeah.
So whatever the Grand Fleet is going to be involved in is going to be whatever leads us to the final war. So it's going to be something that's separate from the story that we may watch and see, but it's going to build something else, and they're all going to do it together.
Because that's kind of the thing, Randy, where like people are questioning, is it going to be after Elbaf or is it going to be prior to Elbaf? What, in terms of placement, does Elbaf have in the story? Is it necessary for us to immediately go there? Because we know that recently Shanks was saying after Whole Cake Island, again with Dragon, the time that we meet again is eventually going to come. It's pretty much we're ready for it now. Or from a writing perspective, do you feel as if it makes sense for us to go to Mer Joie immediately? We're learning about the Land of Gods right now from King, right, and Wano and other things, right? We're seeing certain stuff that's taking place. We know that the Reverie just took place. There's an argument to be made, I guess you could say, on one side that yes, we could go to Mer Joie, and we would need help getting there, right? If we got captured, how would we get there? Who would know to get there? We'd need that kind of setup for it. Do we really have the right setup to take us to Mer Joie? Well, if the revolutionaries come, they could be like, hey, they have Sabo, we're going to go there anyways, but they have Luffy. But if Sabo doesn't actually come to Wano himself, why would the revolutionaries prioritize Wano over getting back Sabo, right? And
well, so that's mission over your people.
That's Garp. Yeah, Garp's the example of that, right? Like, put the mission before family. Ace died,
right?
Whole sword thing. So, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. But
I don't know if Oda would do it, right? But I think it would be really interesting if we did have a saga without Luffy. Like,
that's true.
Like, we had a saga without the crew. Right, so
the Reverie was kind of like, not a saga, but like a arc within a Wano, right?
No. When I say this, I mean, like, we had Amazon Lily, we had Impel Down, we had Marineford, and the main character was Luffy, and we didn't have the crew, right? So what if we had, like Sphinx Island, Impel Down 2.0, something else or whatever, right? But we're just with Zoro leading the crew and other tertiary characters. And Luffy has been captured, or like, because I.
Oh, okay. That's what you're saying. So we were basically implying that we might see Luffy here and there, kind of like we saw Ace here and there in Chains, But for the most part, the story will be led by the other characters. And so what I was going to ask you, Randy, is, you know, I don't know if you ever read Hunter x Hunter, if you're a fan of it or not, but
Oh yeah.
yeah. So like Hunter x Hunter, you know, with the dark,
Naruto references have been
arc.
going over my head, but I know.
Okay.
I know Hunter x Hunter.
The Dark Continent arc, right? So like Gon is removed, right? Like he's not there, but people still are like, bro, like give me another Hunter x Hunter chapter, right? Like Gon isn't there. Now you can't necessarily compare Gon to Luffy, but
Yeah, I mean, like Luffy's a way better protagonist and main character than Gon ever
I'd agree.
could be. You know, it's like yes.
People read Hunter x Hunter for like, I don't know what they read, but you know, I love Hunter x Hunter. I don't know exactly why, but we read it for different reasons, I guess, than we read One Piece. So
yeah, no, I mean it's like Gon is not my favorite character. Like I love Kurapika, love Leorio. Leorio is really my favorite character, but I mean like he's barely in the story. So
yeah.
But
so let's just move on to the next theory. Okay, so so this takes us to what I want to talk about with Wick. Or he says, one theory I've been thinking about is with Rocks. His dream was to become king of the world, but if he really did succeed and he is Imu-sama, my name is Indigo Child. When you shout me out, laugh out. He says, my name is Indigo Child. When you shout me out, laugh out loud. You know, shout out to Indigo Child. Shout out to Wick R, his YouTube name. So, you know, I don't know if you want to really get into the Imu-sama theory. I know that New World Archer, right, the Library of Ohara on Twitter, had made a whole theory video. I think it has like 400,000 views.
He thinks that Rocks is Imu?
Is Imu, but I think there's a lot, you know, it's possible there's like conflicting stuff with that. But in general, you know, if you
that doesn't fit my headcanon. I think that Emu is their own person, that they've been alive since the Void Century, and that, you know, they are the ones that it's just manipulating all of this stuff. I think that Rocks was a dude very similar to Luffy that had that power to have people gravitate towards them. He learned about the true history one way or another and assembled this group of conquerors to fix the world. You know, probably got to Laugh Tale, you know, did not have the same reaction that Roger did, was not happy with the story. You know, I want to see someone get to Laugh Tale and not laugh. That's like an inversion that I want to see.
Satisfied, right? Yeah.
You know, like just someone that's upset with it, right? That this needs to change, right? Then challenges the world, wants to destroy the world so that it can be rebuilt without Emu in power. And then there's the God Valley incident, and you have Garp and Roger, who are none the wiser and don't know the things that Rocks knows until Rocks tells them, right? But by that point, by the time they learn everything, it's too late. And then that's what propels Roger to finally, after 40 years on the sea, he decides to look for this history as well, right? Because of a conversation between him and Rocks. I think Rocks
one thing I'm curious about, Randy, is like, how old is Zebek, right? I think that's important because, you know, people talk about often like a straw hat and how Roger got his straw hat. I've seen theories out there like, did Roger have some relationship with Zebek in the past? You call them rivals. Some people think that Shanks and Luffy are rivals, even though I see them more as a mentorship role. But imagine, you know, we don't know where Roger got his hat from, right? But you know, if you know, you have Kaido, Big Mom, they're probably younger than Zebek. How old was Zebek at the time? Was he the same age as Roger? We see with, you know, Luffy and Blackbeard's relationship. We see with Capone even, that ages within groups of pirates and generations, right, can vary starkly. And so we don't exactly know how old Zebek was. I would expect, just personally, for Zebek to be around Roger's age, right? Not too much older, in my opinion, right?
That checks.
Yeah, and so, you know, in terms of his ambition and what he was doing, you mentioned him, you know, getting the Laugh Tale first. The way I would see it is, more so than him getting the Laugh Tale, is him understanding the true history. Still, we don't really know what his
He could be from Ohara. He could be an archaeologist. There's a lot. It's a lot of possibilities.
We basically agree that we don't really think that he's Inu, to answer that. So getting into your theory about Rocks, and I'm sure a lot of your subs have watched it. I watched it and I was blown away by the idea, and I've seen maybe a few other people maybe comment on certain things, but not to the same extent as you, and I referenced it briefly in a video. And this is something I tweeted out, right? And so people in the chat, let me know what you guys think. Randy, let me know what you think as well. The Lunarians, right? Oda has been teasing King's ancient race since whatever chapter was with Big Mom. Then we get to Onigashima, right? With the whole crew and everything, the raid. We get, you know, Zoro and Sanji fighting King and Queen. Further hints of Lunarians, but nothing much, right? Then we get Zoro fighting King alone, and then, interlude or whatever of Queen saying, hey, I know some things, but you gotta, I'm telling Sanji, you gotta ask history or you gotta ask King himself, whatever the exact translation was. You gotta find out from them, right? What exactly the Lunarians had done.
And Marco had said something that
and then
knew
right. Yeah, sorry about thank you. So and then Marco briefly teased us again, constantly Oda teasing us. Why? Only to do what? For the Zoro versus King fight to end, and us outside of a flashback to only learn that he has a very durable body. Nobody cares about how durable King is, right? Like he could be durable with hockey, could be any other reason. Why are the Lunarians so important? We don't get anything. And so what I'm left with, Randy, is your theory video, right? And this has come to me recently. The only other time during Wano that I can see us, because Oda is going to address it, is the only time that I think I can see him addressing this issue further is not with Raizo and the other person. There's no other character that has any relevance outside of Kaido himself, who during King's flashback was shown to have some knowledge of the Lunarians and their defensive capabilities, right? And they both seem to be both ancient races that have strong defensive abilities for whatever reason, maybe both being related to the land of gods, who knows? And so Kaido probably has some knowledge from King from their conversations. Kaido versus Luffy is the only other opportunity for us to learn more about the Lunarians. Why would Oda take out King the Wildfire before using him as the character to expand on his own character, right? There's a comparison that I point out between, Wiper, right, from Skypiea, who's a great character, right, who has that fire burning on his back, who now we know that Oda was probably alluding to another ringed race via him, right? With him, that little panel where he says, "For my ancestors." For me, I interpret that as King the Wildfire fighting for his ancestors, but we get nothing, right? Aside from Kaido, I'm not going to lose so long as you remain strong. There's a lot that Oda is holding back, I think. And again, the only time that he has left to expand on this is via Kaido, and Kaido's currently fighting who? Luffy. What is going to inspire Kaido to bring up the Lunarians? And so I refer to your video, Randy, about Rocks and then Dragon and Luffy, right? And questioning what relationship do they have to the ancient races of the world, to this void century, to why can Luffy use fire out of nowhere? There's a lot of stuff that Oda clearly has held back on, and he's hinted before in interviews. I don't want to say too much because, right, he says, I don't want to spoil anything because there are certain things he could say that would easily, given all this One Piece theorists out there, we'd be able to piece it together, so he just refrains from it. And that's probably why he does this in the story, right? He probably intentionally, just to give, some leeway to him, doesn't want to say things too early on in terms of explicitly laying out evidence here and there, because we'll easily piece it together given all the hints that exist out there, right?
Exactly.
And so I think that there's something that if the only time Oda is going to talk about Lunarians is with Kaido, Kaido needs an inspiration. He's not just going to start telling Luffy about King the Wildfire out of nowhere, right? Or talking about the Lunarians. He needs a motivation to do so, right? And notice how, when Luffy had that moment after chapter 1000, epic moment, Kaido's surprise and is considering Zebek and Roger and all of them as people that could defeat him, right?
Right.
Luffy intimidates Kaido another time by using Red Hawk. I think you even mentioned this yourself in another video. He uses Red Rock initially, which caused the whole, wait, you think you're on their level, right? And it's a constant reference to, oh, you're scared of this attack, which happens to be fire related. Now, what's interesting is this, right? Think about this, and chat can comment if they want. People often talk about Zoro versus Luffy, who can win? Well, Luffy's repeated weakness has been shown to be what? Blades, right? Swordsmanship. And that's what you have with Zoro. So if the characters are parallel in a way, right? Kaido and King the Wildfire, what does King have that might be effective against Kaido in some way, right? Maybe it's his fire, because we see that panel with Luffy using his red rock, red whatever it is, right? Against Kaido with Ryo, whatever. And he's grinning, saying, oh, for whatever reason, this attack is something that you are dodging actively, right? And so maybe there's an overlap because with Kaido, blades don't work on him unless you have advanced conquerors. So he's not scared of blades. He's scared of a stronger will that's able to harm him, right? But for whatever reason, he was scared of Red Hawk prior to Luffy unlocking advanced conquerors haki, right? So there's a connection there between the fire element that we don't know about yet. And so I related to your video, Randy, about, you know, the Lunarians and questioning, what if there's something else there? Now, something else I saw that somebody had mentioned to me was King of the Wildfire using a final technique against Zoro that had a dragon. Now, we tie that into Kaido, obviously, right? That's his inspiration. You saved me, all that stuff, right?
Well, that was
Final
for the
dragon
ZKK boys.
Exactly. Right? Crushing the, oh, like, this is all you get, right? And then so like, he comes
You weren't happy with you know, with the scar, so
this should be enough, right? Yeah. But so he cuts the dragon, and it led me to wonder. So I saw a video, Monkey D. Dragon. Is there something else there related to dragons in and of themselves? Dragons breathing flames, all that stuff. Celestial dragons that took over the land of the gods. Dragons, right? That is somehow being hinted at in terms of who they are. You know, Red Rock, legendary bird, flying creatures, flying fire, all this kind of stuff. There's certain overlapping elements that I do think add some credence to the idea that maybe, we don't know Luffy's mother, we don't know what's happened with all that. Just maybe that's what happened, but just maybe there's something there with Lunarians, why Oda has teased us, right, with the reveal of Lunarians only to have King defeated and not give us anything. Yeah. I cannot imagine a Vivri card or an SBS in which he that'd be terrible. He just throws it out there. Like, there's no need for that. Yeah, I think it has something to do. Yeah. So,
my guy's Ty's out of here. See you later, Ty. So the whole thing with the Lunarians and everything is like, it's interesting, and as usual, Oda is like, you know, he's baiting us with this, you know, he's teasing us with these ideas. He's giving these peppers, but he's not giving us the whole meal. And this not only is teamed with the Lunarians, but it's also teamed with Queen, really, like teasing Mads. And I think that both of these things could be linked together potentially. I love the idea of everything being tied to Luffy, you know, and a lot of it is because, you know, a lot of people have seen it by now, I'm sure, is like Dawn of the Worlds theory that Rox is like the other grandfather for Luffy. You know, so if that's the case, and Rox was Lunarian, and then we get Kaido's backstory, and we see Rox, and he is a Lunarian, and he utilizes his fire powers, and that's why there's a flaming skull on his, you know, Jolly Roger, then some things come together, and it's like, it's information that was passed down through the Lunarians, and suddenly, you know, they wanted to wipe, you know, I
mean, the other thing is that King is like a really human-looking character. I know there are theories that he's a lizard race, right? That's like a really old theory, that he was like a bird race or whatever. But really, he's just a human being with wings, right? Like an angelic figure, fallen angel, whatever you want to call it. No. And so there's a lot of room out there in terms of like, you know.
But he also, when he was young, he resembled young Luffy. Like his face structure and all of that, like, looks like Luffy.
That's true.
So, like, that was something that was interesting, and then it was also just the idea that Kaido knows about the Lunarians, you know, and he walks up to King, and he's just like, "Oh, hey, you're a Lunarian." Well, I know, you know, and he's basically like, my headcanon is like, "Oh, well, I know all about you. Obviously, I know how strong you are, so you can come and be my right hand." And then off tangent or whatever, but I was just watching, you know, before we were doing this, I was watching one of your videos, and I got to your point even before you got there. I was like listening to the video, and you were talking about Kaido's like true name and like how it means Joy Boy and all of this, but then once you put the U at the end and you made it, you know, Kai-Do, like I was like, okay, wait, C King, okay, he gave King his name. And then I was already I was already like, if you didn't say it, I was going to comment. I was like, oh, Rox totally gave Kaido his name.
Yeah, a new name.
Like that's and it makes so much sense. Like if this was his apprentice, shout out to whoever
had like left that comment or whatever. that I stumbled upon, but they basically when I was talking about it, and I mentioned something along those lines, but they expanded on it to say, Kaido's real name. You're right, Randy. Why would Oda again? Authors do everything for a reason, right? Why would he have a moment? Well, like, what is in Kaido's character to give a character another name? We have not seen that before, right? Until King, he gave him another name. So then we began to question, did he give Queen another name? And people began to point out, Queen isn't actually a woman, right? Like, or at least in that sense. Does Queen have a name that's supposed to be ironic because Queen's not actually a queen, right?
Whereas, and I was actually saying that for a while too, that all of those characters, like maybe even Jack, all have other names because of Joker, Doflamingo, also Joker, but still part of Kaido's crew and essentially initially part of Oda's plan, original plan, was to have Doflamingo be one of Kaido's commanders. So there was talk of that. So that's
Joker, Joker, and the cross-out smile, and it's opposite of Luffy. Whereas, Kaido, if the name doesn't mean Joy Boy, not a real Joy Boy. He even admits to that in that one panel, right, that we got, and then with the King flashback, and then you have Jack. I don't know about with Jack of all trades, when really he wasn't. But
so some of the people in the chat are asking, why don't you tell them a little bit about like this whole thing with Kaido and it meaning Joy Boy.
So for those of you not on Twitter, this is a phenomenon which I've noticed being in the community and just in general. A lot of people aren't necessarily on social media like that, which is probably a good thing. Social media isn't always the best.
I call Twitter Mos Eisley. Richard Hive,
so
scum of villainy.
So I think we're both mainly on there just to talk to people we know and One Piece and stuff like that, right? Aside from having stuff going on in our real lives. But a lot of people in general are not on Twitter from what I've seen, right? Like Randy has, almost 20,000 subscribers, and maybe he has like 5,000, 4,000, whatever, maybe more than that. I don't know. On Twitter, I only have 2,000. Like most people just don't care about Twitter for whatever reason, and so a lot of y'all probably have not seen.
I don't even know how I got that many people on Twitter, bro. Like. Before I started doing YouTube, I had 400. Twitter is such a phenomenon too, man, because I'll be tweeting and then it'll get like hundreds or thousands of likes, and I'm like, what is going on?
I've noticed. I saw the other day that you had a ton of likes on there, and I said I think some of the personalities and just in general, certain things you do on Twitter are different than YouTube, right? But to get back to what the people are asking, it's New World Archer had tweeted out. Sandman had tweeted out.
Yeah, that's what you said in your video, was Sandman.
Yeah, One Piece journalist on Twitter, and he had tweeted out how the kanji, and this is an old Japanese theory, which is crazy. The Japanese community is like, light years ahead of us usually, and we just don't know because we don't speak Japanese. We're kind of like isolated to a degree. But Sandman translated it, and it basically means Kaido's name basically means two things: Joy Boy, as well as strong kid. And so I said in my video that Luffy is a strong kid, right? Grew up with wild animals, all that stuff, but then there's also Joy Boy. But he's like a false Joy Boy, right? Which is cool. And I think Arthur had even said how Kaido is creating smiles, but he's not really Joy Boy. And Joy Boy is thought to bring smiles and laughter to the world. Kaido is bringing smiles to the world, but he's, poisoning the population with it and making them cry. So it's the opposite, right? King, apparently, I'm still holding a hope that King the Wildfire is a conqueror. I just cannot fathom for the likes of me that someone named King that is fighting for their ancestors and all that's happened and surviving torture is not a conqueror. That's crazy to me, right? What is the qualification for it exactly? But it's possible that he's not. And so he would be an ironic king in which he's not really a king, right? But the crazy thing is that panel where Zoro unlocks advanced conquerors and then he says, "Oh, so you're a king," as if he knows, right? And so we're all expecting like, okay, here we go. But then we find out you're like, "King, what are you doing, man?"
Yeah, but, you didn't do anything.
Exactly. So it's like King's not really a conqueror, maybe. Kaido's not really Joy Boy. Queen is a man, right? Instead of being called King, Queen's called Queen. And so it's just like Oda was playing, the genius to call him Goda. Oda was, laying the groundwork for this. Now with Jack, I have no idea, right? Jack of all trades, but not only Jack of all trades. I don't know what Oda means with Jack. Maybe Jack's just kind of an afterthought. It doesn't really matter. But that's basically what it is, you guys. Like Kaido's name in the kanji, in terms of how you can interpret the kanji, different meanings you can interpret, but two of the meanings could be.
But my favorite thing is to buoy off of that, besides the kanji, right? Is like, now I've always looked at Kaido's name, and obviously, like right here, you have Kaizoku, which means pirate, right? So but then you take the Zoku away, you have Kai, like from Kaido, and that's the sea portion.
Oh, King of the Sea. Okay, yeah.
Right, yeah. So, but if you put a U at the end of Kaido's name so that it's Kaidou, then you have OU at the end, which is, Kaizoku O is Pirate King, right? So you just take the Zoku out of Kaizoku O, and then put a D in there, and then you have Kaido. Well, you were talking something about that, but
yeah, I said King of the Sea, Pirate King, but I didn't actually make that really good connection that you made, Kaizoku. Yeah, that's really good because interesting enough, right? We're talking about Chapter 1000, and I made a video on that, and the connections everybody drew in Chapter 1000 to Luffy, how he hit Kaido, right? The dragon, the way he hit him, and the way that Ace had, in Chapter 999 had punched the dragon statue. Everybody went back to Chapter 1 and saw, even when Luffy looking like Shanks, right, with his cape and everything, right? The connection of Luffy punching the Sea King, right? And so you bring up, rightfully so, Randy, Kaizoku, I'm going to be the Pirate King is how Chapter 1 ends, right? Before he goes on his journey and then he meets Kobe and everything. That's how Chapter 1 ends. Yep. And it's just interesting that the Sea King is compared
punching
to Kaido.
Punching a fish.
Fish, fruit. Yeah. Fish, fruit. Kaido's dragon. Yeah, and so it ends the exact same way with Kaido probably being the closest maybe to being Pirate King outside of everybody else right now, but now Luffy takes him down, so what happens thereafter. That's a great point. Let's go so the rocks theory I think is a really interesting one.
But just to finish my one point that I was going to make about all of that is so with rocks and the Lunarians and all of that stuff, that brings also the other side of, like if Rocks is, related to Luffy in any way, and Luffy is part Lunarian, then it explains the fire and all of that. But more than even Luffy being Lunarian, it makes sense and I've talked about this a lot, for Sanji to have been spliced with Lunarian DNA, because it's like there are key things, especially in storytelling, right? When we, the audience, are learning about something, someone is telling, we have to look at the person that is being told that information because it's meaningful to them, right? You take into instance, like I had the theory, Brago put a video up, everybody was talking about this. Momonosuke holds up Onigashima and uses his flame clouds, right? And people were talking about this in 997 when it came out. I was talking about it in 997. They brought it up in my stream. I was like, that is definitely going to happen, and we ran with it from there. But the biggest evidence that I had for that was when we learned about flame clouds to begin with, was from Yamato telling Momonosuke, the person that it matters to, right? Mm-hmm. So when we're learning about Lunarians, it's Queen and King essentially telling Sanji, right? And then here's Sanji having these transformations that he's going through and all of that, and then we're slowly learning about Mads, right? So that's why I started to think more and more about Vegapunk coming to Wano and how much that, that really makes sense. And then if he brings the SSG, which was foreshadowed in 985, because Kaido said, right when he was talking about the new Onigashima initiative, he's like, hey, the government is getting rid of the warlords because they're saying that they have this force that can take me down, that can take Big Mom down, right? So just finish. So if Vegapunk comes to Wano, right, then that is an opportunity for Vegapunk to be the person that actually tells us about Lunarians to Sanji. Like, hey, I was there when your dad spliced all of you kids with this DNA. So then we learn more about it from that, and simultaneously button up both of those storylines, right? Where King was a Lunarian, Queen was part of Mads, Vegapunk was a part of Mads, and then had access to this Lunarian DNA as the person who experimented on King.
So it's good that you brought this up, Randy, because you brought up earlier with the dragon thing. What would happen if Dragon and Vegapunk both showed up at Wano? Like, this is all culminating everything together. Because here's the thing. We don't know what forces the world government is bringing to make sure they take down. Like, this is very serious, right? Zunisha, legendary devil fruit. Do everything you can. Bring everything we have, all our firepower to erase them all from history, right? We cannot let this get out into the world, is probably what they're thinking. And so are they going to bring, that old operation that they compared to Star Wars, right? Order 66 or whatever it was.
Right.
And then also the theories that are culminating right now with Monkey D. Dragon showing up in the Revolutionaries. Those two theories go hand in hand in terms of Dragon's influence with Vegapunk and, Pacifista and the Science Division and everything. Maybe there's something there in terms of an epic moment. It's like everything looks very dark. And then this genius, again, the revolution, this person that's been masterminding everything behind the scenes, at like a snap of his finger, he's just like, I've been preparing for this moment, all this stuff, and the world is blown away. This is why Dragon's world's most wanted criminal, is because he's so good at what he does, right? And so he's set everything up for this point. Again, we don't really know much about him, his character. Ben Beckman's very smart, it's said, maybe Dragon as well, but he's a leader for a reason. He's leading an army. Generals tend to be very tactical. If the Science Division is coming, I would imagine Pacifista are as well. Maybe they've been fed devil fruits, who knows, right?
Well, see, my headcanon for the SSG, and this goes back to, just Drake's dialogue in Sabaody, when he sees the Pacifista for the first time, like, he's the one that says, wait, that's Kizaru's laser that the thing is using, right? So Vegapunk has found a way to take the lineage factor from obviously Zoans, and that's how we have Momonosuke's fruit, but to also take, without the intangibility, Logia fruits, and then turn them into this sort of paramecia hybrid version of these Logias, to where now these Pacifistas cannot turn into light, but can emit light. Right, so what I think that the SSG are either probably a bunch of robots, but could also be augmented Marines, sort of an inversion of the Smiles, where they're not, where they actually have power and it's not goofy.
One thing that's weird, Randy, is like, now that you bring that up, is the reliance on objects, right? And so gigantification is so often focused on living beings. It's strange that we haven't really seen, unless I'm wrong, correct me, them try to gigantify as well as give devil fruits to inanimate objects. So, like, the Pacifista, right? Like, they're kind of a mix between, a robot is what, or a cyborg is it used to be alive, but now it's kind of not. It's kind of blurring the lines. But imagine if you were to, like, gigantify, which is their ambition, as well as give devil fruits to them, these giant monsters. I've been questioning, the world government wants to probably fight against the ancient weapons or some other forces out there that's very large. We don't know yet. I think end of story, akin to Naruto, again, the Naruto references. They had the giant 10 tails and all that stuff. I always wondered if there'd be like a sea devil or some other creature at the end after Blackbeard's gone. I don't really see Emu as a one-on-one fight. Fujitora, Green Bull, I don't know what Green Bull is like, but if they're not enemies, you only have, Akainu and Kizaru. They can't take on everybody. Luffy's already on their level to some extent, or he will be after Wano. So you need a force out there that we're not ready for, and this one that's going to be prepared for it. But I want to get to this very quickly, Randy, just make sure we get it in. 3-3ville, his theory. Shout out to him. He had said, Zoro returns Enma in replacement for the Nidai Kitetsu. Let me expand this. He says, Zoro's post-Wano arsenal. Sandai plus Nidai plus Wado. Zoro's post-Gorosei arsenal. Sandai plus Nidai plus Shodai plus Wado Ichimonji.
Now, I haven't seen the theory, but does he go into the idea that all of his swords would then mean 1, 2, and 3? Because you have Ichi in the Wado, and then you have 2 in Nidai, and then Sandai 3.
So Randy, my point of contention on Twitter when he brought this up was, and I could be wrong, was Zoro seems like he strictly only carries 3 swords with him, unless he's missing swords, but at most only 3. And maybe he's referenced this in the end story as to why he does it. I can't remember. But 333ville or Evil believes that Zoro can actually carry 4 swords, or 5 or 6 or 7 if he wanted to. But strictly for his idea right now is Zoro will take all 3 Kitetsus, right? And he'll wield them together as one type of swordsmanship. And then he'll have Wado and another there I saw there was Wado and Enma together as the 2 sword style, and the 1 sword style will be Wado. right? But right now, but with this modern theory, maybe he updated it. I don't know. The three swordsman wields all Kitetsus together during that style. Wado for one sword style, Wado plus Shodai for two sword style, and then three sword style will be all the Kitetsu. Although I think the original idea was Enma and Wado because Enma and Wado have a kinship, obviously. But me personally, Randy, like I think that's just a lot of swords.
I think that sounds fun, but that is not. I think that there is a conversation to be had about like what swords Zoro leaves Wano with, because there are so many in play here. Because you have, obviously he's got the Sandai with him, he's got the Wado. The Wado's never leaving, and now he has Enma. He gave up Shusui. The Nidai has had a lot of focus on in Act 1, and was even brought back up the end of Act 2, I think. And then there's also Ame no Habakiri, which he's not going to walk away with. That's going to end up being Momonosuke's sword. But there is a world where if he is going to get the Nidai, it is going to be, in my opinion, to replace the Sandai. So it's kind of like a great upgrade, right? Like I feel like the Sandai, in terms of what we learned about swordsmanship in Wano, that you can increase the rank of a blade. I can't imagine if the Sandai, Nidai, Idai, if the Sandai is weaker than the Nidai, I feel like Zoro should leave behind the Sandai and get the Nidai, and then this is
Nidai
interesting
with the Idai. Yeah.
So this is interesting. King J in the chat, he said Tangayama said that he's waiting. He's also waiting for someone. When Tama said she's waiting for Ace, what if the Nidai is Zoro's birth sword, and that Zoro is the baby he's waiting for? I mean, that
Zoro's the baby for who?
So what it basically is saying is, what if he's been waiting for Zoro for 20 years to come and pick up the Nidai because it's really his sword?
Oh yeah, I heard that. Yeah,
so I've never heard that, and that's interesting. But then at the same time, I'm like, why wouldn't he have maybe realized that when he met Zoro, and then saw his?
That's the weird thing, and that's kind of one of the things, like the way Oda's gone about writing it, wherein like we kind of have like a disconnect, right, Randy, between when we were in Ringo Graveyard, right, with Hiyori and Yukimaru, a lot of theories were happening right at that point in time with Zoro and his lineage, right? But now we have Oda.
And by the way, King J, you spelled you spelled Odin's dad's name wrong, by the way.
Oh, okay. but yeah, like back then, man, like you remember like how in Ring of Graveyard, there's a lot of theories, but now Oda came up with an interview saying, oh, that's not his dad, right? So we like, that his uncle. We just don't know. I given up. I gave up, bro. Like I just don't.
Oh yeah.
When Oda decides to tell us what is going on with Zoro and his past, his lineage, if it even matters to the story, because apparently now Oda is saying that he doesn't even know if he really wants to address it because it doesn't really matter for his character. I don't know what Oda's going to do with that, but
yeah, and I mean, and then there was also the SBS like definitively saying that Ushimaru like is not his dad, but that also didn't tell us that he's
didn't absolve absolve the relationship. So we just don't know, and that's the thing. Like we're so detached now. Like it's been over a year or more since Ringo Graveyard, however long Wano's been going on, that whatever. I mean, there's still a connection that we'll draw if we find out more, but unless Zoro gets up again, I don't know what's going to happen that's going to be able to allow us to tie us back to, okay, what relevance does us finding out about Zoro's past have to the current moment in Wano? Because now we've forgotten about Zoro and we're only focused on Luffy and Kaido and whatever other fights are still remaining in Wano. The only way that I can see us really carrying it, because the thing is, we never even saw Zoro visit Ryuma's grave, right? And
that's going to happen. And that's
exactly.
And that's why I'm also that's why I'm also sort of like, he may leave with Shusui. It's like I don't necessarily think, even though Hiyori like gifted Enma to Zoro, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to leave with Enma. Like that's not his sword. There's all this combating with Enma going on, and then it's like, does Zoro need Enma, or is Enma a learning lesson that you can tame any sword? And it's
because we did see with the other blades, Randy, is Zoro use, unless Enma was, and there's something I noticed in Thriller Bark, which I'm touching to, I guess right now, when we saw Zoro kind of use the same draining effect from Enma on his other blades, right? Where they were both like coded in his hockey, but it was also like kind of conquerors. They said, okay, this sword is draining a lot of energy, but they all look the same in that moment. During Thriller Bark, there's a scene where he uses Shusui as a black blade, which I think that is being hinted at right now in Wano, How to Conquer the Blade. And he says that Shusui actually combined the power of his other swords together into one attack, in which, you know, Shusui on his own was exhibiting certain features as a black blade, as its own unique sword of being, you know, powerful and just releasing a lot of strength, right? And then when he used it with his other swords, they basically exhibited the same effect and combined into one. And you saw that when he fought King, wherein he, like you said, like 3 dragon blades, you know, King of Hell, whatever it was that he had done, and all his swords had the same effect on his body that Enma was exhibiting, as if they were sharing the same ability. So I don't know if there's an overlap there or whatever. You know, we need to see more. But...
So I think it would be interesting if, you know, Zoro goes to Shusui's, goes to Ryuma's grave, right, and picks Shusui back up, but now with having dealt with Enma and learned and like tapped into his Conqueror's Haki, something happens when he holds Shusui that never happened before, right?
Yeah.
That he's able to like tap into some sort of power that Shusui had latent because Enma taught him how to activate that. And then because Ryuma gave him Shusui, he walks away with that, or something with his lineage. Someone's there, you know, someone from the Shimotsuki clan. He starts learning about everything. Maybe he learns, you know, he's the true descendant of Ryuma, and that the sword really belongs to him anyway. You know, like maybe that's the full circle thing of the.
That's the thing, right? Because yeah, Shusui is a Shimotsuki blade, right? And so maybe Oda's opened up a way for himself because Wado Ichimonji is also a Shimotsuki blade. And
which
so
is another reason why I think that he should get Shusui back, and he should just have 3 Shimotsuki blades.
Okay. I didn't think about that. That's a good idea. So you have several different paths, right? You have Zoro having 3 Shimotsuki blades, and again, you know, the Shimotsuki symbol is two blades, 2 Shimotsuki blades, which is right what he has right now. But Zoro himself has adopted a 3-sword fighting style for maybe 3 Shimotsuki blades. That's a great idea.
So I think he could realistically leave Wano after a conversation with Hitetsu, aka Kosuke Sukiyaki, at the end of Wano, and trade the Sandai for the Nidai, and then trade Enma back for Shusui.
But going back to the point I think I made to you earlier in the stream, Randy,
and only having 3 swords with him.
yeah, that's what I think. I don't think Zoro's gonna have more than 3 swords with him, but you know, maybe 3 is right. But the thing that I said earlier in the stream, the thing I said earlier in the stream was maybe, you know, having a black blade already achieved by somebody else, even though Zoro has no problem taking swords from somebody else when the opportunity arises to him, I don't know if he would want to, akin to, you know, he bows to Mihawk. I think that has a broader meaning. I don't know how his duel with Mihawk would look, or how Mihawk would look upon it. If Zoro, say for example, let's just focus on Shusui.
Well, Mihawk knows he has Shusui. Mihawk was there. He's probably has had a conversation with him about Shusui.
That's actually interesting. Have we even seen that? Have we seen a Mihawk even address that blade? Nah.
No, but I mean, I would love to see that.
Right, and it goes back to what we were talking about, whether or not, you know, Mihawk being fully honest and what a black blade actually is, and telling him don't drink Hitler and arm and hockey. But Zoro has a black blade on him. How does Oda not bring that up? Right, like maybe we'll find out more. That's a good point. I never even thought about that. Like, you know,
we need that flashback.
We need that. Oda, what's going on here?
Yeah, forget the Kaido flashback. I need the Zoro Mihawk flashback.
Because if I was Mihawk,
waiting for 10 years.
If I was Mihawk, I'd be like, wait, you know, is he ready to fight me now? He has a black blade. Maybe
right, exactly. I'd be looking at what he's got strapped on him. I'm like, hold up, what? All right, I broke 2 of your swords. Now you've got a black blade. You show up at my doorstep. What's up?
Why are you bowing? But so I got a DM from Hunter. You probably see him on Twitter, and I don't know exactly what Hunter's question is. He sent me something about Sanji, and it basically is. Wait, Okay, now that said that he sent me something. He said that's a different question. Okay, so his first thing was there are various images of black lightning in the past that Zoro, but also with Sanji. But I'm just gonna say the Hunter that could be Armin Haki. I personally would have no problem. I don't care what the chat says. Don't get mad at me. I would not mind if Sanji got Conqueror's Haki in the future. I know that during the Reverie, during the Reverie or some stream, we had some kind of debate about it, and people were saying they don't want that to happen. Some people were saying that they don't see it happening. I personally would not mind it. Maybe the story elements are not there. Maybe they are there. Who knows? There's a lot I think I've seen from videos of, and there's someone named Parvision, I think. Parvision, some new One Piece YouTuber that I think Bravo had recently featured on his channel. Shout out to Parvision. I'm not too familiar with him, but I think he's touched on various end of story powers of Sanji. So, give Parvision a look when you guys are done with the stream. But, Hunter also mentions now he thinks that Enma can be given to Momonosuke now that he's older. I actually don't mind that.
Oh, I like that. That I like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Wano's yours and he needs a sword to protect, and Hiyori is one half of Odin and and this is me just saying my part now. Hiyori is one half of Odin and Momonosuke is the other half. Hiyori gets the Abeno Habakuri, Momonosuke gets Enma, and they both are two halves of their father's will, right? Protecting Wano, whatever.
It makes sense that Momonosuke would want to have both Enma and Abeno Habakuri and do, Odin and have two swords, Odin two swords style.
Yeah, his father. That's true. And then Hunter says maybe he can wield after some training from Zoro if he joins him temporarily. Although now that he's older, I don't see him joining the crew. That's just my opinion. Unless he goes back to his normal size. Most theories saw him as an apprentice. I do not see an adult Momonosuke joining the Stride Pirates. I see him now becoming emperor. But Randy, you can give me your thoughts on that if you want.
So I'm probably one of the most vocal people about Momo and Tama for apprentices. And that's obviously to mirror Roger with the Buggy and Shanks stuff. And there's so much tying Momo and Tama together, like to the end game of this story as well, I feel. And we've had so many interactions with Momonosuke over the last 10 years that he's been with us, that he's already really basically been a part of the crew. And more than anybody, I would even say more than Carrot, Oda's gone out of his way to give us meaningful interactions between Tama and the other Straw Hats. And that's, something that's important. Now, even though Momonosuke has been aged up, if Wano is not saved by the end of everything, then that forces Momonosuke to go with him until he can be the shogun, right? So that's his dream. He wants to be the shogun of Wano. But if the borders cannot be opened up, if CP0 is too strong to overcome after Kaido, after Big Mom, or with Big Mom, with whoever else shows up, Blackbeard, Shanks, whatever ends up happening, right? If the Straw Hats cannot combat this and Wano falls into the hands of the government, then Momonosuke has no choice but to continue riding with the Straw Hats until he can become the shogun. So, and
another point, Randy, is for Luffy, spots of land, material possessions have never been important to him. He's always been willing to let things get destroyed. And this is another thing that 3-3ville had pointed out, and I found more supporting evidence for his idea about maybe the Flower Capital getting destroyed, but people get evacuated, because so long as people are alive, you can always rebuild. So land and all that stuff doesn't matter. The Ancient Kingdom doesn't matter. Dreams, inherited will, all that stuff can be passed down. And Zunisha's there to relocate people. The Minks and the Samurai have ties. Maybe they go on the back of Zunisha. They get out of there. And the one thing I wanted to add is what you're saying about them coming back is if the world government were to take over Wano or whatever. Oh man, I had this. Randy, you can finish what you're saying. I'm trying to figure out what I was thinking about a while ago.
So with that and bringing up Zunisha and all of that is there's been a bunch of theories of the Flower Capital is going to get destroyed. Everybody's going to evacuate. I mean, we've seen this time and again in the story. I know with the Rygo, we have all the people on the ships and they're leaving and all of this. Dressrosa with the birdcage, all of this. There is that moment where the people understand that this cataclysmic event is about to happen in their land, and then they run off, right? So they're going to see Onigashima eventually. But with Zunisha here, that if Momonosuke can continue to move the island, then no mink should be on Zo right now. Because it was stressed during Zo that all minks are fighters. So, even the ones that looked like civilians, so they should be on Wano, meaning that Zo is completely evacuated. So if he moves Onigashima to and just drops it on Zo, right, that fulfills my own headcanon that Luffy is going to be the peace bringer of the world, right? Madame Charlie's prophecy that he's going to destroy Fishman Island. Of course he is. He's going to destroy it so that they go and propagate the main blues. Stop hiding beneath the world, right? But who else is hiding? The minks are hiding on top of Zo. So if you destroy Zo, which I think is going to happen no matter what before the story, or at least the minks aren't going to go back to Zo.
Zo's Zo's been walking for a long time. The concept of you need
I'm not even talking about Zunisha. I'm talking about just the island on top of it. Just the ancient kingdom of the minks, right? Destroy that or have them leave that because it's unnecessary. And then the minks have to go off and find new islands. And then that's essentially creating what Big Mom wanted to, but the right way. You'll have the fishmen, you'll have the minks, you'll have all races just living harmoniously in the world. Hopefully.
And that'd be interesting. I'm wondering if Big Mom is going to reveal that at some point. One thing I was going to say to add to what you were saying, the thought that I forgot earlier was, Fishman Island being destroyed again, akin to, I think Randy pointed, Weevil pointed this out, akin to Flower Capital being destroyed, two ancient kingdoms, right? Where the fishmen want to go to the surface, the samurai or the people of Wano want to open their borders. They want to escape. They want to go beyond where they've been confined to, right? And you see the minks just wandering forever, lost and isolated from society. And again, the theme of Oda's story of bringing people together, of removing the distance between all of us, right? Where we can all be one. It's a beautiful concept. And like you mentioned, even if that doesn't happen immediately, right? I can see how that's possible. And that's what I was going to mention, is how Noah's Ark was, we got to stop it being destroyed, right? The prophecy has to be fulfilled. It wasn't time yet for the fishmen to go to the surface, even after Fishman Island. And so I can see with Wano, even though we're expecting the borders to be opened immediately, there is room for Oda to write it as now is not the time. Jorba will return, but this is the place Jorba returns. But I don't know if Oda never said that in 20 years Wano's borders will be opened. He said that was his dream, right? And it's probably the dream of the ancient kingdom for Wano as well. But what Odin did say was Jorba will return in 20 years, right? And similar to Fishman Island, they had a prophecy of the two sovereigns meeting again, but they didn't actually know for sure exactly when Fishman Island would go to the surface. And so there could be a culminating point in which we see, with Luffy's character, after he becomes Joy Boy, there is a moment in which we see all these events happen. Although I also do see some room, Randy, in which if Luffy is, there's the final panel of Wano that Oda said, I want everybody to pay attention to. And I personally think that panel has to be about Luffy, has to be something that he's been meaning to draw for a long time that ties into what this story is about.
I even mentioned that I think that it's got to be something he's been thinking about since he's been writing this, for 24 years. So that's why and especially with Film Red and everything, I put the video out, I wasn't even necessarily considering Shanks coming to Wano until all of this Film Red stuff came out. Mm-hmm. Because it's if Shanks is going to be in Film Red, then he has to show up in the manga before that. It doesn't even matter.
Spoil the manga,
right, and it doesn't matter that the anime didn't catch up because Japan doesn't care about anime only. So read the manga. So that's why I was I made a video. It's did Oda just spoil the end of Wano? Because
not to interrupt you, Randy, but the one thing I say about that in terms of animation, in terms of the studio, because it's going to be the same studio that makes that movie for the most part. Are they going to be in a position? Because, with the openings, one thing I've come to realize is in the openings, the reason why they spoil us is because they're already messing around with how they're going to animate the moments later on that require the most animation, right? So you see Luffy and Kaido Conqueror's Clash, right? You see cloud splitting. You see all these hints and pieces that will actually be used in later episodes, even if they'll be tweaked a little bit, right? To fulfill whatever happens in that moment. And so these animators actually do kind of mess around with animation early on as they're making the opening.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
And then there's also the fact that they don't care about anime onlys, and it's like it's to hype up the people that have read the manga, and it's like, hey, you know this part, so you better get ready because we're animating it.
You had to double down there, Reddy. You're like, look, no, Reddy. It's like, no, they don't care about you. But yeah, I can see that, but I also do think that, you know, the one problem I see with it is for them to put out, you know, the movie with Shanks and events that are happening after Wano, whenever that movie comes out ahead of the anime, maybe most likely at the end of 2022, or I don't see the Wano anime being complete until 2024, maybe, right? Like that's how long it's probably going to go for, I think. Because it's behind by what? Like it's behind by like 40 chapters, right? It's 40 chapters behind us, I think. 40 or 50, 40 or 50.
They just they just animated around like 994, 95. So, but did Thomas show up in the anime yet? Because that would be 995. I think that might be this
Marco
week.
It was Marco.
That might be
it was Marco
tonight.
and Big Mom. Yeah, it was Marco and Big Mom, and him saying and Big Mom. Oh no, it was Sparrow and Big Mom, and Big Mom saying, you know, Big Sparrow asking, you know, why would you trust Kaido, and Big Mom saying, oh, what makes you think? Apparently they changed the translation to make it seem like Big Mom was going to betray him. So I don't know. You know, they always be doing stuff that spoils, but that would be about 40 chapters behind roughly. So I would imagine, you know, 52 weeks in a year, that the Wano anime will not end until halfway through 2023 or you know, start of 2024, something like that. So if the movie already got announced in 2021, the movie's probably coming out end of 2022, right? So or early 2023. So with Shanks, you know, they would have to be animating after the events of Wano, unless there's going to be something that, you know, somehow, if it's canon, it's either going to, I don't know how they're going to fit that in. Like, it's going to be events that are detached. It only makes sense, right?
If they put anything canon in there, the only thing that really makes sense to me is like if they have some stuff like a flashback of Shanks and Mihawk, right? Some stuff that is like prior to the story. But the thing is if Shanks doesn't show up at the end of Wano prior to this movie coming out, then Luffy and Shanks will never talk to each other in this movie because Oda's not going to let that happen. Period. So
exactly. And that takes away from, I think, for the manga readers, right? Even though, you know, the anime owners who don't care about you, like for the manga readers, like to spoil that in a movie and deprive us of actually experiencing that in the story as it should be, even though it's great to see that things animated. You know, we don't want to see any of those spoilers. You know, I know we get spoilers and leaks and stuff, you know, for the chapters, but like that's something I feel like
I stay away from that personally.
Yeah, but it should be reserved, I think, for you know, for the actual manga itself. That's that kind of moment. It's not meant for, you know, a movie, even if it's canon, in my opinion. You know.
Yeah. I just want to shout out the Hidden Island super chatted to say, unfortunately missed most of the stream, but still want to show my support to two of the goats. Shout out to the Hidden Island, who is
One Piece YouTuber, I think.
Yeah, he's a One Piece YouTuber. I've seen a couple of his videos, and he's doing good. He's doing good stuff. So check him out.
Okay, let's just touch on some of these things. I got like 40 comments. Let's try and just, you know, like more.
Pick the best ones.
Yeah, I've been scrolling over them. I'm like, which ones am I gonna go in? So I see the eraser. No, I'm not touching that. Zunisha. Okay, so Alex Jewel says, pretty much, let me summarize it, like, does Randy think that Zunisha is Pluton? He saw my video and saw Morty's video, and obviously Joy Boy. I think Joy Boy might be the person that originally, at least on YouTube, made a video about Pluton. I shouted him out as well.
Pluton being Zunisha?
Yeah.
So
what do you think about that?
So I've been seeing it around. I put my own Zunisha video out, which had nothing to do with Zunisha being Pluton at all. And then I got like a comment saying like, how come you didn't credit Morge for this? I'm like, I don't talk about Zunisha being Pluton once. What are you talking about? Like I didn't even say Pluton in this video.
It's crazy when that happens. It's like you'll see a title or see a thumbnail. It's like, oh, this has to be this. It's like, no, bro.
Right?
Like,
yeah.
You have to actually listen to. You have to actually watch.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So and that's just because I have my own headcanon on the ancient weapons. So I'm like, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
Like if Pluton, was a ship and then got fed this elephant fruit, right? That's fine. But I think it's more interesting if, and especially considering when you get that zoom in on the eye of Zunisha and Zo, and then you look at that eye, and you look at Emu's eye, and you look at Mihawk's eye, and you look at Hakuba's eye, right? And they're all round, and they're all sort of, the same, right? So there needs to be some sort of connection there. I like the idea that Zunisha was at one point human, right? And so my own beliefs of the ancient kingdom is that there's probably, this is also taking cues from the way that Oda, organizes his royalty, which we've seen enough instances, right? There's usually a king that is being displaced, right? And then and someone that's overthrowing them, and then someone has to come in and correct that or not. We've seen this with King Riku. We've seen this with Godfall, Cobra, Dalton to a certain degree, Boodle. He wasn't a king, but he was a mayor, and Buggy came in and messed his shit up. So there's all of this stuff. So the Ancient Kingdom has to have some element of that, in my opinion. So that and then there's also, you take in Emu, right? And now we've learned about the sun god, and a lot of people were bringing up Egyptian stuff when the sun god was being mentioned because of the sun god Ra. And then you have Emu, which kind of sounds like Imhotep. And you start thinking about Imhotep, and if you go down a rabbit hole of Egyptian mythology, things like that, Imhotep was someone that was lauded in, just the past, right? He built the pyramids. He was the high priest of the sun god, and he was the vizier, general for the pharaoh, right? So now, if he was essentially, if he was more of like an Orochi type character, right, and a play on Imhotep being this great being, but actually here's a shady version of Imhotep coming in, and now here's this king or this relative that could be related, and kind of says something along the lines of, well, not necessarily says, but
do they hint at it? Do they hint at it, Randy, just to quickly interrupt, with Shanks and Beckman, when he says the sun and the moon, and maybe sun god Nika had a moon counterpart, right?
Yeah.
That was more devious and usurped him or replaced him, right? Like you under me, kind of like with Zoro.
That's a good point. I actually brought something along this up when we were talking about the sun god initially, because I was starting to do a deep dive of just religion in One Piece, right? So if you have a sun god, there probably is a moon god, right?
Yeah.
And then what if the celestial hoof is the representation of that god, right? And then it became this thing of, within the ancient kingdom, my god is better than your god, right? And then
in many ways, like the hoof is like when you look at a sun, right? And you have like a circle, and you have like all those little triangles around it to make like the flames of a sun. The celestial hoof is kind of like a segmented version of a sun, right? When the sun pirates actually made their symbol by covering up the original slave mark on them, which is like a fraction of what their symbolism is. And people think that maybe the Joy Boy or Sun God Nika actually had a sun as, right, his emblem or whatever. And so that's a good idea. With Imu, it would be fascinating. I've seen various videos on this. I think Library of Horror made a whole series on, what he expected Imu and other things to be. But I think that it's possible that Imu, like you were mentioning, has a relationship to Joy Boy, a different path. For me personally, one of the craziest things I thought about, Randy, was imagine if Joy Boy, right, the broken promise and everything, we found at the very end that Joy Boy was still alive and that Imu was Joy Boy, and he just had this whole dark turn in his life. Right?
I've heard that, and I kind of like that. I also heard a lot of people saying, they were even saying it in my stream, was what if Zunisha is Joy Boy, right? And then got cursed and, was used and to trample on the ancient kingdom or something after being transformed.
Oh, and so Joy Boy returning after 20 years, and now you see Zunisha showing up all of a sudden.
Right,
It's
and
like,
here's
what
Joy
happened?
Boy actually showing up, and then...
Yeah, I guess. For me personally,
Yeah.
like, I don't want Joy
I don't want Joy Boy to be alive, personally.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely on board with that, but it could be, and then it feeds my in the last video I made, I started talking about gigantification, which has obviously been a huge part of the post time skip era. Vegapunk was working on it, Caesar was working on it for Big Mom. So this is something that the government has been trying to figure out for centuries. That's what it has said. It said centuries, right? So that means that this is something that ties into the Void Century. Now they're talking about this fruit, right, which now gets us into even more of the the current topics here, right? Which I'm of the belief that they are talking about the Gomu Gomu no Mi, and that it has a different name and all of this, and that it has a different power, right? So I started to analyze awakenings that we've seen, right, and what makes Luffy different from other characters. And awakening that we've seen, like Doflamingo and Katakuri, are both what I would call producers. They make strings, they make mochi, so therefore they turn the environment into mochi or strings, but Mr. 3 would also fall in line with this. Like, if he awakened, I would expect him to be able to turn the ground into wax. But Luffy doesn't operate that way. He's someone that isn't, his power is intrinsic. It's all within him. So his awakening shouldn't necessarily affect the environment in the same way that theirs does. People have had the idea that, like, Luffy will turn the ground into rubber, it'll become a bouncy castle, stuff like that. Like, that's fun. But then I started thinking about Kid's awakening, right? Where he actually took his power and then gave it to another person, like inverted it, right? So then if Luffy's real ability, and we go back to Eni's lobby and we look at like him basically growing and shrinking, right? If that is the true power, then he is the key to gigantification, and then he could make things grow and shrink, right?
That's a great idea.
So then we would have Zunisha, right, which may have just been a regular-sized elephant or elephant man at some point, but if the original user of this grow, giant, whatever fruit used, and then awakened Zunisha, ballooned it, whatever, into this gigantic creature that it is now, that would be an interesting twist.
So the one thing that I take exception with is with Doflamingo, and I often hear people say this with the awakening factor, wherein, right, they say that Dofi produces strings, whereas Luffy's like intrinsic to him. When Dofi uses awakening, right, he touches the ground, and it's not that the ground produces strings, right? The ground appears to become strings in of themselves. Whereas Dofi doesn't himself become strings. He produces strings, then he can produce another version of himself that's made of strings. So Oda seems to kind of blur the lines between what his rules are in terms of that, in which with Luffy, right, just looking at the opposites, Luffy might not be able to produce rubber, but it's possible that he might be able to turn the environment to rubber, similar to Doflamingo not being able to become, or he isn't strings, but he can turn the environment.
And I'm not saying that I'm ruling out the possibility that he can turn the ground into rubber or anything like that.
You're talking about like a preference of like what's most likely to be an effect of what he can do would be, right? Like, so even if he could do that, the ultimate effect would be identification.
What I would love is like a Hunter x Hunter breakdown of like awakenings and stuff, and it would be interesting if it was set up like Nen, whereas like if you are a producer type, you may lean towards this other type, so that it's like if Luffy awakens, and he's not a producer type, then he has producer qualities because he's awakening towards it.
Okay, so...
But that's all. We have no basis for that.
So just quickly going up what you just said, Randy, that takes us to something people have been spamming me with in terms of the comments of theories to cover. Have you seen Uteron's? Have you heard of Uteron's theory that's been going around whether in your comments or on Twitter? People saying, "Hey, what do you think about this? The oil fat theory about I'll just generally sum it up for you. And I left some comments on Twitter that he might have seen because he made a video that kind of parallels it.
So I don't know what new comments that he made about it, and I had seen people talk about it, and I was like iffy about it. But then I saw your community post where someone brought it up, and you were like, "Oh yeah, I definitely want to talk about this." So before we did the stream earlier today, I did watch the video.
What do you think about him having oil food? Because here's the thing: his second video, he actually did some more research, right? And in a video where I covered the awakening, I'd originally said some stuff where I'm like, "Hey, he's not synthetic rubber, he's natural rubber, the gomu, the rubber trees in Brazil, where he's from Brazil, all that stuff," which might be what he is right now. But then Uterin kind of says synthetic rubber can actually be natural if it's produced from oil, where oil is also natural and can be found in nature, right? And so rubber is also a product of, in terms of stretching and all that stuff, of petroleum. And he's suggesting, like, another alternative Oda could be saying is Luffy has more properties than one, which is not too different from most paramecium, in which they have many abilities, right? Like Law, for example, many different techniques he can use, right? Other paramecium are similar. And so, Doflamingo can make a heat whip, right? By using certain properties of, friction in his strings and speed and everything. And so different ways of using the rubber properties that you have that Luffy might not be aware of. And so he's saying that petroleum is one. You look at the numbers. I don't know how legitimate the number stuff is, but basically Luffy might be able to be oil in reality, which might parallel fat and meat, which is why I mentioned on Twitter.
Then his awakening could probably resemble a lot of the stuff that Katakuri has done. And that he's actually a special paramecia.
Yeah, and I mentioned on Twitter how, Katakuri was eating all that mochi to recover his, we assume to recover his strength because he's a sugar man or a mochi man or whatever, right? So he's eating a bunch of sweets. Luffy eats a bunch of meat, or Luffy eats a bunch of meat regularly to replenish his energy, right? And it comes off across as a gag or whatever.
And then he was saying that it could be like fat too, right? So he's absorbing the fat of the meat.
Yeah, and it burns off and all that kind of stuff. So he gets.
My favorite thing was just the naming of the weapons and how that sort of goes in gears and like it all has sort of, it needs oil, right, to work. So it was interesting. The more he went on about it, I was like, this would be a good twist. I would be okay with this. Am I sold? Is there the thing about this property to me, right, is if it is the oil fruit, right, or the fat fruit, what does that do for the story, right?
That's what I'm wondering.
What is it? Why does that make this fruit important? What why would it have a different name? Why would the Gorosei be afraid of this fruit awakening into the oil fruit, right? Whereas
and that's why, like, your giant idea.
Whereas if the fruit is actually a grow fruit, a giant fruit, whatever, something that can manipulate size, that is something that could be devastating because you can create something like Zunisha, or you could completely shrink the red line.
Because even if the fruit is an oil fruit or fat fruit, it's just like the connections to fire I can understand by igniting it that we've been questioning with Red Hawk. And then that takes you to Sun God Nika, which people have connected to Joy Boy. And so maybe that's why, but you don't even need to change, to address the powers themselves. Or just say
because you could just have Luffy have Lunarian DNA in him, and then
just say that this devil fruit used to belong to them or something. You wouldn't necessarily need to do that. So I agree with you, Randy, that's one of the things that throws a loophole into it, and you can't necessarily take the whole number thing too seriously. The Nika Nika no Mi, my personal thing is, even though I mentioned that in 2 videos now, is just like, I've always said to my viewers,
that was another part that I wasn't too big on.
This might not. I said, like, look, the exact naming. There's no way we as One Piece. Marco the Phoenix is one of those exceptions wherein, like, he speaks Japanese. He called a lot of things, but even then, like, he'll admit that not everything was always spot on. There are a few theories he had where, generally speaking, he got things right. Time travel, right? For Wano, Conjuro, whatever, the trader, right? No. But not everything was necessarily fully as it should be. And we as One Piece theorists, it's important.
And most of the wins that I have on my channel and things that I've gotten right is based around me just understanding Japanese mythology.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Like, Oda's going to go this way because this is the way the story is in Japan.
Exactly. And it's never, like, we never profess to really know exactly how things are going to be, which is why, for me, not everybody fully accepts of that, right? They hold, like we talked about at the very beginning of the video, Raid and failure. So for me personally, right, I moved to like a place where I will generally put out ideas and I'll say, my title might be explicit, but in the video I'm constantly saying, it's possible, maybe, perhaps. People make fun of me in the comments. You always say maybe, perhaps. I'm trying to stress you can't hold it against me when it's wrong. That I'm not saying this is gonna happen, right? Just enjoy the video together. But we're almost at 3 hours already. I wanted to just briefly get in one more. Yeah, 3 hours. Yeah. It's been fun. It's been fun.
Oh yeah, no, it has been fun, man. And
I just want to
saw Threevils in the chat. Evil.
Oh, shout out to Evil.
He
Yeah.
said, "Hey guys, hope the stream's going great. Wishing lots of love and blessings. Young bucks at work, so we can't stick around long. All love on my Yeah, we talked about you earlier, man. You'll have to go back and find it."
Atticus Emerson said, I think Momo, Vivi, and Shirahoshi are all connected as parts of the ancient weapons. Which is interesting. I've seen that. Me personally, I have questioned Vivi's character. I know that you're very big, and shout out to Silvers, right? I haven't talked to him in a minute, but I think he really likes Vivi's character. He wants her back in the story, right? I think you know what I'm talking about, right? Silvers.
I know Silvers, but I don't think anybody is as gung ho about Vivi coming back into the story than I am.
You are okay. Well, I apologize. I meant no disrespect.
That's my goat.
The goat. Okay. Oh, I see it behind you. Okay, yeah, I like that. But Atticus Emerson, he's talking about how Vivi, Shirahoshi, and Momo are all ancient weapons, land, sky, and sea. He says they can each speak to the hearts of land kings, sky kings, sea kings. But we know
he's
Shirahoshi,
basically spitting what I preach on a weekly basis.
So he's coming here with your theory. Okay.
Yeah.
So
no.
he said that.
Yeah.
He said that.
I'll let you finish.
Okay. Yeah. Just real quick. So he said that Atticus. So Atticus said that Vivi can speak to that little bird that she's with her,
yeah.
Karu. Yeah. So she can. They have a connection, right? Maybe there's something there. I haven't seen your personal video on that, Randy. I know that maybe Moy dropped a video on that, but I haven't watched it either. I just remember the thumbnail that had Vivi on there. So early on, I had an idea that certain characters we met in arcs have a connection to those ancient weapons, right? So we meet Shirahoshi, right? Obviously Poseidon, Momonosuke. If Pluton is reduced, clearly connection to Pluton or Uranus, whichever one, or Uranus preferably, actually. And then with Vivi, we learned about the Pluton, and I've always believed with Vivi, even though you can love her character, great moments with her. Alabasta is one of my favorite arc. If she's gonna join the Straw Hats or join the team, there's something that I think is missing. And I actually had a video script that is revealed now that I plan on revealing after Wano's done, depending on what we find out. In which Oda basically writing Luffy as or saying like Oda has revealed Luffy as the strongest emperor, and the strongest character. The reason why I believe that, right? If Luffy leaves Wano and he has Shirahoshi and the Sea Kings on his side, Poseidon, he has Momonosuke. If Momonosuke is an ancient weapon on his side, Uranus or
controlling
whatever.
Zunisha.
And if Vivi comes back and Vivi is connected to Pluton, you have Luffy Yonko level defeat Kaido maybe, or however you interpret his victory with 3 ancient weapons. There's nobody in the story that's stronger than him. Like that's literally there's nothing you can compare him to based on what we know from the story thus far. Even Blackbeard, maybe he has a massive fleet of evil pirates out there. And that's interesting, right? 3 devil fruits, right? That each might have the power to destroy the world when you think about it. Whitebeard's devil fruit, right? Yeah, exactly, right. A nice counterbalance where Luffy has 3 ancient weapons, but Blackbeard has Guruguru Nomi, can destroy the world as it's been described for Whitebeard. Yami Yami Nomi, not really expanded upon, but I think the power is just as dangerous. He calls it the strongest devil fruit. Another power of black holes can destroy the world, and we don't know what his last devil fruit is. Might also be another power, maybe related to the sea, if it's a octopus or whatever it is, that can also destroy the world. And Luffy having 3 ancient weapons on his side. 3 great powers, the strongest, strongest Logia, strongest Paramecia, strongest Zoan versus the 3 ancient weapons and Luffy, right? So we'll see what happens.
So my whole thing with the ancient weapons is that, I've believed that Momo's an ancient weapon the second he made connected with Zunisha, and since that I was thinking, okay, we've got Sea Kings, now we've got giant things here. These have to be land kings of some sort, right? And then I went back and I started, I was rereading the flashback to Shirahoshi, and I was rereading Alabasta, right? And I've brought this panel up a bunch of times, so people in the chat are going to know this, but the panel of Shirahoshi unlocking her ability and like talking to Sea Kings for the first time is drawn like exactly the same way with the same amount of significance to Vivi screaming right before the rain starts. So at the very least, I think that Vivi has the voice of all things if she is not already Pluton. And when I go into my theories, I try, I'm not just spitting headcanon just because this services characters that I like and all of this stuff. I try to find things within the story and then story structure, right? What is the purpose of this character going to be? What does it mean if they come back? Does it service the plot at all? And then the first time we ever hear Pluton, right, it's like, it's like Crocodile mentions it, and then the next panel is Vivi with a giant question mark, right? So if Vivi is Pluton, then there's already like an in-story foreshadowing connection, because this is something that happens in films as well. Like if that was being asked, like the person in question is the person that you're going to cut to, right? Because you want that reaction, so that when you're watching it on a second glance, it's like, oh, look at that. Right? So, but I think that the ancient weapons are all conduits, right? So you have the things that they control, the Sea Kings, the Land Kings, Sky Kings, if they exist, or some sort, right? But here, Shirahoshi is the conduit for the actual weapon, which is the Sea Kings. Momonosuke would be the conduit for the actual weapon, which is Zunisha and anything like it, right? The Florian Triangle, all of those creatures. And I brought it up in my video that if you go back to chapter 495 somewhere, no, that's not right. Is that right? Yeah, it'd probably be. It's somewhere around the last chapter of Thriller Bark before, right at the beginning of the Archipelago arc, right when you're about to meet Kami, and we see the Florian Triangle monsters. The exact same sound effect is used, and the same swirls in the sky that we see in 1037 with Zunisha. So these creatures, whatever the Florian Triangle monsters are, they have a connection to Zunisha, and Oda is trying to draw that parallel because he put the same sound effect, he put the same things in the sky. So whatever is
and
there...
Thriller Bark having reconnected to Wano,
right. And these creatures are so big, we did the math, like they can actually walk over the red line. It's not a Laboon situation where, one Laboon is on one side and all of the other whales are on the other. Like if Zunisha wanted to cross into a different blue, it could. It would just walk over it. That's how tall it is. So the same thing for these Florian Triangle creatures. Like they could all come together, and then theoretically Momonosuke would be able to control all of them, right? Now,
that's interesting. So do you think that we're going to see them all reunite if we, find out the reveal of Pluton by the end of Wano? Or do you think that, if Zunisha is Pluton or not, or do you think that
Weevil spitting
Oda's going to wait similar to, the whale, and that they'll meet each other again at the end of the story because, again, the themes of the story and them trying to reunite. One thing I wanted to point out, I just want to call this out in the chat. This is from Mello. Mello says, Vivi being Pluton is such a dumb theory. But here's the thing. So, I saw somebody else say something that was actually a good evidence behind. I can't remember. He said it's a dumb theory. I just wanted to hear what you think. He didn't really give any explanation. He just thinks it's dumb.
Right. Okay, so the biggest criticism that I get about it is like, Pluton is a ship. It's not a person, right? Pluton can be a ship, right? Because if it can be, or the blueprints that they had was the countermeasure to the ancient weapons. There's the possibility for that as well. It's not explicitly stated, but if it is a ship, right, and that ship is either the Noah or something that's underneath Alabasta to begin with, it's going to need someone to move that ship. Or if it's an organic ship, right, then that opens the idea for that whole Pluton is Zunisha theory, right? Because then there's still the conduit for it, which is still on track that whatever this ship is, whatever Pluton is, needs someone to move it, right? And I'm just saying that Vivi could be that conduit.
Yeah. Well, so one thing I actually think I brought up on Twitter was, you know, the one of the impressions we got from Frankie, right, was this: we have the blueprints because we want to create a counter to Pluton if we ever need it. And so with Zunisha and the theories running around about Zunisha being Pluton, I'm like, well, if Pluton's already on our side, what is the whole point of Frankie's build up to designing another, Pluton? What's the point? And this goes kind of in what you were saying about you not being so, gung ho about Zunisha being Pluton, because if we have Pluton already, we don't need Frankie and the build up of him having a great purpose of designing the strongest ship or whatever, right? Whether that's actually turning the Thousand Sunny into Pluton or actually designing a separate one. So there's a lot of, obviously things that you can pick at.
Yeah. So I guess really all I'm saying is that Vivi is the key to Pluton in the same way that Shirahoshi is the key to the Sea Kings, and the way that or Vivi could be the key to Uranus too, and that Momo could be the key to Pluton. All of this stuff could be intermingled, but I think that the sovereigns and that these royalty figures or whatever are the actual ancient weapons. That we were told specifically that we only know definitively one ancient weapon, and that is Shirahoshi, right? So it's not far-fetched to say that every ancient weapon is a human plus this, because that is what Oda has told us, right? Anything else is really just sort of reaching. We have been told that an ancient weapon is a person plus something that
with
they're
the ability,
controlling.
with the ability to control a thing, and either a creature or an item or even a devil fruit, No, it's funny. Chin Ho Wong. People are bad watching in the chat. Chin Ho Wong says, they've been asking me why is Vinland not a mod. They go,
wait a second, are you not?
They said Vinland's not savage enough.
Yeah, bro.
Maybe
Just type something. I gotta mod you.
I appreciate it.
I can't because I want to see your. I gotta get you the blue check mark, bro. Oh man, that's too funny. Atticus Emerson said, sorry, haven't really watched your channel, would love to check out your vids on it. And I was saying the 3 would be keys, but conduits work. Oh, I mean, I was just talking about keys too. So yeah. So I have a Vivi video. It's mostly about Vivi's return to the crew and like everything at the end of the Reverie, but at the end I go into like this Pluton stuff with panels and things like that. And
I don't know what I typed. I was pressing some buttons and I don't even know it popped up. So what does it matter? But
now people can see it better. And it's funny too, because like the Hidden Island came in and I was like, oh, the Hidden Island, yeah, let me mod this guy.
But yeah, I think we got through most of the theories that people had sent me. At least like the ones that were like, wait, someone says, can we have a theory of how you obtained your voice?
Well, I mean that's a birds and the bees story.
Exactly.
Marcos Vinicus said, water and oil can't be mixed. When you try to put them together, water usually ends up on the bottom while oil ends up on top. If Luffy has that fruit, would be good symbolism in his fight against Emu. Emu turned, Emu is backwards as Umi, which is water.
Bring up the water thing, Randy. The one lesson I wanted to ask you was when Luffy fell into the water, right? And we had that moment again. A lot of obscurity from Oda, a lot of mystery as usual. That's what we love. But it led to a lot of theories by her. Some of them. Did Luffy awaken when he fell in the water? The voice of all things expanded, right? So he gained a new ability. It seemed like it expanded his powers. But do you think that him falling in the water, we know the effect it has on devil fruits, had any effect on him in a way that we don't yet know about yet, right? Falling in the water, all of a sudden expanded consciousness, reaching out to people. It was a strange scene to me that I feel like has a broad, for example, the new One Piece opening even emphasizes that scene. Now, obviously, because that scene has value to it, right, in terms of what happens in the manga itself, with Luffy saying, I'm going to defeat Kaido, I didn't lose, we know there's importance. But the way that they frame it, I feel like there's something there, especially, for example, they put that yellow bubble around him with the water. And I know that the fan colorings of, the Sun God Nika reveal are just fan colorings. We don't actually know what that panel's going to look like. But in the fan colorings, they have the little yellow sun thing around him of the Sun God Nika, right? And it's the same shape as, the little circle around Luffy. when he's in the water. So I just put two and two together. And I said, well, maybe, you know, Luffy's awakening into, you know, who he is. I think it'd be interesting if, you know, the voice of all things can hear poneglyphs. Can you hear the voice of a devil fruit? Right? That's one thing I wanted to, I was wondering about, because there's a soul in there. I personally believe that there might be souls or will or hockey, whatever, inside the poneglyphs themselves. We still don't know why they're indestructible.
That's possible. We could have souls in the devil fruits. We could have souls in swords. You know,
is it possible for you to, like, because, you know, O'Hara made a video. I think it touched on ideas that some others had, you know, over a period of time, but he really put into concrete terms by compacting it. And he discusses how potentially devil fruits can shape people. So Blackbeard eating too many devil fruits can really mess him up, shape him in certain ways. Why, you know, souls fighting each other, why you'll explode when you eat them, right? You know, Sabo, apparently there's hints that he is adopting personality traits of Ace, and it was incredible what O'Hara documented of Sabo doing things. For example, there's a hint after Dressrosa when Sabo leaves, and apparently Zoro says something like, hey, he kind of reminds me of Ace, right? And that kind of blew my mind, because I looked at it, I said, wait, he has a point, right? And he just ate the Mera no Mi, and he's adopted certain mannerisms. And so if Luffy falls in the water and he's awakening, right, and he's hearing a new voice, whatever it is that's taking place, is he going to be affected at all by his devil fruit? Now, I don't know how people would feel about that. You know, would you want Luffy just to be Luffy? Would you really want him to be affected by something else? Free will versus, you know, being altered. You know, devil fruits are said to already alter your DNA, but is it possible they can alter your consciousness or your soul, right? There's a lot to, like, really, like, consider in all of it. I think so often as One Piece fans, given the fact that we really don't know the entire, we have certain understandings and hints of the premise of Oda's story. We don't fully know the direction he's heading. No one can predict how it's going to end, right? And so we're tempted at times to really say, oh, well, this isn't how it's supposed to be, right? When we don't know that yet. We still have at least another 6 years, and the grand plan that Oda has designed for his story, we're going to really get a big chunk of it at the end of Wano, but we're still going to have a lot more to delve into. Elbaf, Mary Joie, other stuff, the Final War, to truly know what One Piece is about. And I'll give you an example, Randy, before we close out quickly, is like, you know, from the other stories that you read, Randy, whether it's, you know, I know you're into the film industry, right? From a literary perspective and your knowledge about film, do you feel that as you know, sagas or series go on, they become more of what they are, or do they lose themselves? Do you think that One Piece
depends on the
lost
creator.
itself? That's true.
And that's why I hold One Piece up to the high regard that I do, is because Oda is the most consistent writer that I've ever seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when, you know, it's just there's just certain moments that I think are lost unless you're a weekly reader, or maybe they're not, right? But I mean, like when Chapter 500 came out, and like you have the little Oda box for Rayleigh, right? And then everybody in the forum community back then is just like wait, hold on, like go back to Chapter 19 or, you know, or whatever it was, and then it's like you see there's like a guy there talking to Ace and Buggy that also has the same like chin thing, and you're just, you know, beard, and you're like, okay, this dude's a genius. I mean, you know, that's just one iteration of many, right? But when you look at film, because you wanted the comparison to film, right? It's the same way that, like, one of the best seasons of television to come out in recent years was True Detective Season 1, right? I
agree.
And the reason that was such a good season of television was because it was written by, every episode was written by the same person, and every episode was directed by the same person. So there was a consistency in tone, in the writing, and in the directing throughout, rather than what happens in television a lot of times, where a different writer writes a different episode, a different director comes in to direct that episode, and that's all timing things most of the time. You know, limited series, they'll let it happen, and it'll just be like they're shooting one long movie. But when you're doing like a network show, or even just a regular show, you're trying to involve all of these cooks into the kitchen. And of course, Oda's got a bunch of editors or whatever, but at the same time, he's still the showrunner of everything here. It's still what he says. So we have a story that is 1,037 chapters long that has been running for 24 years by one author. And that's a level of consistency. But what is changing is Oda himself, right? Because when Oda started the story, he was a young man, right? Now he's in his 40s and he's got a family. So his values have changed because he's naturally grown. So sometimes subject matter and the way that he tackles things have changed.
The world has changed. Yeah.
Right. The world has changed. Politics have changed. There's 24 years of growth, not only within his own life, but within everything. So that's going to shape someone, right? But Oda has never let that really affect the quality of One Piece, which is what is very unique to this story. Because somebody else can have something run for as long as this. I mean, all right, like look at Dragon Ball, right? Dragon Ball just had Dragon Ball Super and all of this stuff, but the quality is not anywhere near. The quality dips off after, realistically the Saiyan saga, even though the Cell saga is really awesome. And the Android saga, but after that, you get GT, you get Super. There's elements of everything there, but the show becomes a different show after the Saiyan saga.
And with Dragon Ball, it was kind of like, Goku it's just about Goku. Like, just, I want to be the strongest, right? I know that there was I read somewhere that Gohan was supposed to become the new protagonist to bring,
and
a
that
breath
would
of
have
fresh air.
been, that's what they set up.
Yeah.
And and that was Toriyama lying to us. And that's what it should have been. If the show was going to continue on, it should have been. We were promised something, Sorry to talk about.
Was great for that reason.
Sorry. Yeah. Exactly. And that's that's the area where it falls flat. It's like we were promised something in that alternate timeline of a like badass Gohan that we never get, right? So there's just so many things, right? But you take early Dragon Ball as a whole, very consistent, very good. You take the Saiyan saga, which still organically feels the same. You still have all of the Z fighters, right? But then after that, it becomes this new show where everything is not involving the same characters that you just spent hundreds of episodes with, or like 200 episodes with. And now it's about these new characters, and sometimes these other characters show up. Whereas One Piece is consistent in that we still have the core crew. No one has been overshadowed, right? Although there is a argument that could be made about the scabbards overshadowing, certain elements of what the story could have been post time skip with if it just focused in on the Straw Hats. So there's things about that, but nothing to the effect of what happened to the Saiyans versus the humans in Dragon Ball. Which is like that's I think the easiest way that I can explain the theme of what you were getting at. Like, here is a story that went for a very long time, but then changed in a radically different way. Whereas One Piece has stayed consistent, even though there's new powers and people are stronger and all of that stuff. It still feels like it takes place in the same world that I was reading during, like the Alabasta saga.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I was gonna say that when the point where Goku died, like there's so many high points during the Cell Saga before we get off this Dragon Ball topic, but he dies, and then Gohan, saying "you animal," and yelling and transforming. There's so many things that make it so perfect. I know people say Dragon Ball should have ended after the Namek Saga, but there were some great points that happened in the Cell Saga in which people say, okay,
that was the perfect
there.
end.
They should have ended it there, because the Sun takes over, and the Sun has a whole different philosophy on life, whereas like he valued, like 16 said, right? You're kind, you care about nature, you're half human, you're not all about fighting, because Goku has a lot of selfish tendencies. It's a great transition, and it speaks to maybe to a point that Toriyama was trying to make, right? Where you can both be kind and still be a Saiyan, which contradicts, Vegeta, and also achieve something that Goku maybe was never able to fully achieve, right? Given all the reckless things that he did. But going back to One Piece, the reason I brought that up, Randy, is because
whereas just to end the Dragon Ball analogy, the Buu saga, despite its high points, was actually Toriyama ruining his work and ruining everything that he had set up. Because he ruined Gohan as a character, he brought Goku back, he did all this stuff. Like, it's just...
So why did you do that?
Bro.
Yeah. Like, so with Buu Saga, you know, one of the things people often like cling to, and I know that there are probably people out there like Geekdom and other people, right, that refute a lot of the contradictions that we might have, more so as, you know, we were really like Darhead, you know, growing up, we were probably like really diehard Dragon Ball fans, like, oh yeah, this is great, but now all the way some criticisms compared to other series. People like him might be like, nah, you know, I have some issues with your criticism because they know more about the interviews and the lore and stuff that we don't see. One of the things with the Buu Saga is, like, you know, there are elements in it though that are memorable that I'm glad we got. I'm glad we got the all-out Goku versus Vegeta fight. Like, I felt like that is one of the most iconic fights in the series. Goku, you know, where Vegeta says, you know, Vegeta has a great moment, one of his greatest moments in the Buu Saga, which is unfortunate because, you know, it had a lot of flaws. But, you know, Vegeta is basically like, you know, when he hugs his son, when he's like, basically like a real man, like a father, right? When he's like an iconic line, right? When he says, I do this for you, Kakarot, right? Like when he ends it with that, I do this for you, and he blew himself up. I'm like, that's my man, bro. Like, that is, you know, Vegeta is one of the greatest
he's the highlight of the Buu Saga. Like,
highlight of it. Absolutely. He makes stuff for Gohan and all that stuff. You know, even when he was fighting Goku, when he's like, you know, expressing his raw emotions, like the shame I feel, the envy, all that stuff, wearing it on his sleeve. So many people can relate to that. I think it's one of the most watched things on YouTube in terms of anime and Dragon Ball. But, you know, I brought this up, Randy, as we close out, is like, you know, in terms of the ending of One Piece, so obviously people want to be critical, you know, talk about theories. I see people in the comments talking about Morge again. It's just like, in general, none of us really know where Oda is going. We have some idea as fans, if we truly know the story, we know where his heart is at. I firmly believe as a One Piece fan that Oda is going to have a incredible ending. Just because I understand how important this is to him. And you truly, as you read it, Zoroboy actually dropped a really good video I recommend everybody watch. It didn't get as many views as his other videos, but you can tell the passion he put behind it, where he talks about why One Piece is one of the most ambitious stories ever told, and what Oda's trying to do. And what I see from it is Oda's not going to drop the ball, because this story carries a weight to it that is starkly different than Naruto, Dragon Ball, or anything else. There's something in One Piece that is more important than the goofy moments, than the powers, than the fights, than even the story that Luffy is on, the journey Luffy's on himself. There's a message here that Oda wants to deliver properly, right? And there are different things that we can all find in it, but I'll let you say, yeah.
And that's another difference between One Piece and other stories, right? Is that as a film buff, as a pop culture buff, as a mythology buff, right? There's always something more in One Piece for me than there is in a lot of other manga and anime, right? Mm-hmm. Because whereas, there's still mythology and stuff peppered into everything, and fables and whatever, but Oda really tries and crafts. He takes all of these elements from the world and puts it into the story and makes it all work. It's an excellent thing. But when you're crafting a story, the key thing is to know the ending. If you don't know the ending, don't write it. And that's a problem that a lot of writers have. And you see this especially in anime and manga, because a lot of these authors, they start in manga very early. I felt that, I don't know if this is the case or whatever, but I felt that when I was watching, say, Bleach, right? I was like, this is an author that wanted to make something cool, but didn't know where he wanted to take it.
And that's how it ended. Yeah.
And I don't know that because I never finished it. But...
But that's how it ended. Yeah, that's how it ended, because that's exactly how I felt, Randy. I read the last chapter, and so many of us, maybe even Tekken felt that way, because Tekken's kind of known as the Bleach Wizard. I read it and I was like, what? And that's literally what I was left with. What? And it wasn't, I even to this day, I don't really have an emotion to capture how empty the ending was, right? It just, I don't know. Yeah. Apparently, he's maybe with anime that's coming up, he'll be able to revisit some things with manga. I don't know, but what you're saying is spot on, because when you talk about if you don't have an ending, I think that's great. I'm actually share with Joyboy, because Joyboy is working on a book right now, and it's incredible. It's actually a really good book. Nice. I can't wait to when it comes out. But you talk about, if you don't know an ending, I might share that idea with him. What you said, don't write it, and that speaks volumes to me, because you know, if you don't, it's like with our lives, right? Outside of, writing books, if you don't know what you want to do with your life, right? It's kind of like with a book, how can you really, I mean, maybe you just want to live and just kind of go with the flow, but writing is very different, right? Wherein you're attempting to tell a completed story before you even completed it, right? And so with our lives as human beings, we're not trying to live a completed life before we finished it. We're just experiencing it, planning things out, hoping it goes right. But doing that is starkly different, right, than actually telling a story, which is why the greatest authors typically have an idea, like you said, of what they want to do. They know what their message is. They have the ending in mind, and they work towards that. Kind of, as if like you could like imagine, Randy, if you were able to, look back on your life and say, okay, this is how it's going to end. What am I going to do leading up to that to make sure that I can, reach that end? Most people don't plan out their lives that way. Like, I want to have a family and kids. Okay, what am I going to do to get those family and kids? Or I want to make, six figures or $1 million. What am I going to do to get to that point? We're kind of just living our lives, all the way from being kids to being young adults, and then we're in our 30s, what, 40s, and then we're like, okay, how are we going to end? Once we're in our 40s, like, oh, you know what? Our 50s, damn, a lot of things I wish I had done, didn't really plan things out. We didn't really think of the ending because the ending's not always in our control. But as a writer, you're kind of God. And I think other authors can compare themselves to that, right? Where you can actually decide the ending of your universe, how it begins, the Big Bang, and how it ends, right?
The reason One Piece works is because Oda knows the ending. And he's said that he knows the ending, and he's been writing towards the ending this whole time. As long as you know the ending to your story, and this is the biggest writing tip that I can give anybody, if anybody's a writer in the the chat here, is that once you know your ending, then you know where you're going, so you can lay all of this foreshadowing and make yourself look like a genius the entire time. Because once you get to that point, right, then you've made it, right? And it's not enough to take us on a satisfying journey. That is also your duty as a writer as well. And there needs to be a purpose for your story, and there's so many elements of One Piece that, like, you can take out all of these themes that anybody can put into their daily lives, like, oh, this made me a better person because of XYZ. I went for this dream because XYZ in One Piece, right? Mm-hmm. But once it's over and done with, I truly believe that, it's going to hurt because we're not going to have One Piece anymore, but we're going to be satisfied with what it is. And it's another reason why I personally stay away from any theory. As a theorist, like, this sounds like blasphemous or whatever, but I stay away from any theories that have to do with what the One Piece is. Because like Luffy in chapter like 509 or whatever it was, I don't want to know.
You don't want to know.
I don't want to know.
I love that.
I will theorize about everything else. Like, is Zunisha XYZ? Is this that? Is this character's relationship with this? To be honest, are we going to get to this flashback? But I don't care about the One Piece. I've never seen O'Hara's big theory about it. I didn't watch Artur's new thing about the end. And it's like, it's cool that they're doing it. These things are doing crazy numbers, but I don't want to know.
So without spoiling you, O'Hara in that video doesn't actually talk about what the One Piece is. He tries to guess like the location of the final island. As time has passed, people have like become skeptical of certain things. So who knows? There's always competing ideas out there. Library of O'Hara. I also have not watched that video, and it's strange because other videos I will go. I'll watch one of yours if it's interesting. Watch one of Moida's. But for whatever reason, despite how epic, I know that Arthur's understanding Japanese is in terms of connecting dots and being embarrassed when he occasionally drops a video. I watched his Luffy's Dream video, which is really good, but for whatever reason, I did not want to watch his big One Piece what it is video that he's been working a long time on. Props to him.
And I feel bad about it because I know what he's been talking about it. I'll go and watch it when the series is over.
That's me personally, Randy. Like, I don't see myself watching. Like, once One Piece is over, I've actually had this conversation with myself. Like, am I going to really be watching? Nobody's going to care about theories anymore because the story's done. Once the story's done, I don't care about theories anymore. People already don't care about power scaling anymore because of how the story is and what we've seen from it. I noticed a lot of YouTubers that were really into power scaling have moved on from it. Aside from the annual stream, nobody really cares about this stuff anymore. And so theories have come back, but theories are going to die when the story's over. So there's and Grandland Review actually dropped a video on this where people asked him, "What are you going to do when One Piece is over?" And he addresses it and says kind of like, there'll still be information, facts, like there'll still be movie called movies. He can still imagine Toei milking the series. Although I personally think, out of respect for Oda, they're not. Yeah, they're not going. Hopefully, they're not going to do that with the core elements. Like they might make the Ace novel a movie, right? They might make it a TV series. They might, show us a prologue.
If they do anything, a prequel or something would be fine.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But I think that Oda, unlike with One Piece, it's going to be allowed to rest because again, there's a certain level of value and respect this series garners, where you don't want to mutilate it. I think they've even learned from looking at Boruto and other stuff. Like, just don't do it, bro. Like, even though Boruto I think might still gain views, I don't know how it really is in the West or whatever. I'm sure they're aware of the criticism and the traction. I don't think they're going to do a Boruto to One Piece. Even though those series have often been compared in the past. And also, I think Boruto did Boruto have Kishimoto's blessing? I think it might have, but just failed. And
well, the other thing, too, is that a lot of times, I don't know what their contracts are or anything like that, but in order to become a mangaka, in order
you sell your rights.
For Toei to have, to take over this thing, you might be selling a certain percentage of your rights, right? That's why Toriyama, walked away, but then they still made GT, right? Mm-hmm. And I guarantee he didn't consult very much on it.
Yeah, and then he came back, I guess, right? Because he wanted to do the Super thing. I think
right, because he's involved with Super, and that's probably because of all of the backlash from GT. Like, I walked away from this thing, and now that's what everybody remembers. It's kind of like, that would be like if Benioff and Weiss came back and did like a Game of Thrones season 9 and 10 to like fix the palette
make
or
up
something.
For it. I'm not against it. Like, I personally said, like, if they bring Game of Thrones, whole new season 9 and 10, please. It's fine. But yeah, Randy, it's been good talking to you, man.
Yeah, you too, man. I mean, this is this feels like a good place to do this. This definitely went an hour and 40 minutes over what I anticipated, but I lost track of time too, man. I mean, we definitely went theory for theory. This was this was a lot of fun. I'm glad we were able to do it. I definitely need to eat something. And,
I'm about to get some food too. Yeah. But we should definitely do this again, like, in the future. After you go through your theory for theory panelists and everything, I'm definitely down whenever you're free. I don't really stream on my channel. I promise my viewers I'd be starting doing that 22, but it's just not. I don't know. But whatever.
I never thought I was going to do it, and then I tried it, and then you
enjoyed it.
I loved talking to the chat
people. Yeah. That's what seems like it's fun.
It's like a live forum. And it's like, I get to respond to comments and all this stuff like in real time. I don't know. That's what I like about it.
Yeah, it's more personal. But yeah, again, Randy, like, I appreciate you bringing me on. It's been a while since I've been on stream with people. It was great breaking down some theories with you. It was definitely savage. Right? Savage. Am I saying that right? Like, am I using it right? It's savage. Savage. Yeah.
Someone clipped that. We just got Ragnar to say savage, so that's
If you guys need me to say things professionally for you, right? I'm charging like $20, per word. So hit me up.
I did love when you. I was watching the. What I did watch was Artur when he did the fan-made Reverie thing, and you did the narration for that. I was dying just the fact that you were the narrator.
That was funny. Yeah. And that was kind of like the old days too. Like, it was in between. It was in between like my very original, voice stuff on it when I was trying to be the voice actor stuff. But and now when I'm a little more casual with it, it was somewhere in between there. So it is what it is. But yeah, Randy, yeah. I'll talk to you later, man.
Appreciate you, man. Later. Oh, and there you have it, guys. The very first Theory for Theory with me and VinlanD. Vinland. I hope you guys enjoyed that. This went. I wanted to have it be 2 hours. It ended up being 3 hours and 40 minutes. And there you have it. Shout out to Andrew Austin, who said, "Thanks, Randy, for streaming when I'm not at work. Great stream. Appreciate you, man. So this stream, people have been asking about the second channel. I did make it. All right. I think that I'll probably use this stream as one of the inaugural things that I put on the second channel. And I'll drop a link for the second channel, which is where I think the streams will be going. We'll stream here and then I'll move them over Morge style. And I'm going to put the link to the second channel in the comments here. You guys can sub there. I'm going to leave this up for like a day or two on the channel though, and then move it over. But I'm going to start trying to adjust the metrics for this channel, and I think that might introduce some growth. We'll see. It's a test, but we'll still stream here because I love it, and appreciate you guys for being here. We try to talk about the talk with the chat as much as possible, and Ragnar did make a list on his channel, which of course go follow VinlanD. All right, he put a list where people were putting their theories, so we try to get through as many of those as possible. That's why this was going so long. But yeah, join me next time. We're gonna have more guests in the future, and man, this was I couldn't have asked for a better stream. This was awesome. Thanks everybody for being here. Unless there's anything else that you guys want to talk about real quick, I'm gonna go and eat something. I'm really excited for 1038. I realized that I didn't do 1038 spoilers in my mind. There's not real 1038 spoilers yet. What do I think is going to happen? We just did all this stuff with. I mean, it would be really great to see more stuff with this Zunisha. I don't know if it's going to happen. We need to finish whatever's going on with Law and Kid, but I still think we're going to get vignettes of everybody else that we haven't seen, so that we readjust for the new year the geography of everything. I think that's what Oda's going to do. So. Everybody's saying what number sub they are on the second channel. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate all of you. And yeah, I've been talking to some other YouTubers about collabs, but I'm going to save these theory for theories specifically for like break weeks, I think. So. So that we have new stuff to talk about, because if I just run them all through for a week, I'm going to end up regurgitating myself too much, But, yeah, this was fun. And, yeah. Do you guys like it? Do we like the structure of it? Is this good? Is this a good thing that Let me know, and then I'll get out of here, and I'll let everybody do what they gotta do. And I'll do what I gotta do. Still have almost 300 people in here. This is great. And oh wait, I realized I didn't pin the message. So there you go. Second channel is pinned in the comments, so you guys can find that there. The goal is to grow that, and we'll move the VODs over there and anything that's longer than the normal, and like try and keep this channel clean and analyses and all of that, and then we'll have the streams here and then move them over there. So Dawn Knight said they're the second sub on the channel. King J was 5th. Everybody's saying this stuff. Yeah, everybody's saying great stream. And Viswa said, love this, I want more. Awesome. Marco said, get Joy Boy. Yeah, I mean, Joy Boy and I did talk about going Troy Boy versus Joy Boy at some point. So Theory for theory might be the might be the plan at some point. Yeah. K-Pro said, cleanest collab I've seen in a while. Okay. Cool. Hidden Island said that they subbed. Appreciate you. Oh, Hidden Island said that they loved the stream. All right. This is cool. Great. I'm glad you guys liked this. I'm glad you liked it. We're going to do more of this. All right. I'm going to go because this has been super long, but I want to thank everybody that's been here the whole time, even some of the time, even if you just got here. Thank you. The VOD's going to be up for at least through tomorrow, and then I think sometime on Monday I'm going to move it over to the second channel. And then if anybody, look, I don't want to pressure anybody, but I saw some people say that they are going to rewatch it. If they want to let me know any good timestamps or their favorite moments from the stream, I will clip them and make them a VOD on the main channel here. So let me know in the comments your favorite theories, your favorite parts from the stream that you liked, or just moments, things that we talked about that you thought like that I should clip and then let more people focus in on that. Like if this was like, if there's a part of the stream that's like, this part should be seen by more people, because realistically, a lot of people aren't going to watch it or listen to the whole 3 hours. So if there's anything that you guys liked, let me know and I'll clip it and put it on the main channel. All right. And King J said, what do you think about Oda making Kaido and Big Bomb not look like one better than the other by making Raizo versus Fukurokuju the final battle that decides the fate of Wano? I would rather like all of the dust settles in Wano, right? Everything's over and done with. Straw Hats have moved to another island, and Raizo and Fukurokuju are still paralyzed, and that's the last battle. And they don't know that the raid is over. So. And, yeah. So, let me know your favorite parts. I'm going to go, guys. Thanks so much for being here. And I will catch you Friday for 10:38.
Savage.